Welcome to episode 10. That's right, at double digits of 22-man game with Jared and Dame. I'm Jared, that's Damon. I assume from your raising the roof, is that a celebration of hitting 10 or is it a celebration of the fact that I'm not lagging by 15 seconds?
Yeah, it was not our first take on this intro. Peel back the curtain. No, this was 10. I was just also
You're
celebrating.
raising the yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Um it's great. It's Tuesday, September 30th at 8:31 p.m. So we've gotten some updates on some of the injury news with a few players. And I know something that I don't know if you've seen yet today. And I can't wait to drop it for the relevant game, but it's big news for people in my
Uh-oh.
corner on this pod. So um
Uh-oh.
all of that to say, yeah, how's your week been going? Do you have a good Tuesday to Tuesday?
Yeah, can't
Well, I guess
complain
I
for sure.
know actually.
Yeah, sure. But like long day, but a good day. I actually last night. So you're referencing last night. Dom and I potted, and it was 3 hours. That episode came out today. I got very
Yeah,
little sleep, waiting for it to download and upload and stuff. So then today was a little tiresome. But one of those days where like you leave work and you're like, man, I killed it today. Like I feel it,
nice.
like I feel I'm like even with the little energy, I was just like, boom, I was super on today. So
It's
happy
nice.
about that. Happy to be here with you to talk football. Episode 10 is huge. Yeah, I'm excited. Big week, a couple of tragic stories that I'm sure we'll get into regarding some outlooks for players for the rest of the season. And perhaps their associated squads, but other than that, a couple good games that I'm sure we'll talk about as well. How about you? How is Jared?
Yeah, I remembered after asking how was your week that you were sick for a big chunk of the
Also
week,
true.
and so it felt a little ignorant for me to be like, you have a fun week, you ill person.
Yeah.
No, I've had a decent week, I would say. Some This was kind of the first week that I really tried out. I had the Lions game full screen on one TV, and then I had the second TV from my guest room moved into the living room and
Wow.
had four more games going on there to just sort of monitor. And fortunately, the 12 o'clock window was kind of sleepy on a lot of games, so I was able to sort of
Hmm.
do that without getting too distracted. And yeah, I've had a fun last couple days. Got back into Metaphor, which we've both been playing and enjoying. We're at about the same point in the game, which is fun. Hopefully, you
And
having
also
to.
insane
It
because I
is.
was way behind.
It's a wild speed run. It's impressive, and I am glad that you found the game rewarding. I've really enjoyed it. I don't think it comes to the Persona 5 level, which is a favorite for both of us.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun. And I am looking forward to this week because on top of doing our normal game recap and then hopping into our wheel teams for next week and getting an idea of what the schedule is, we are also going to take a look at our pre-season record predictions for these teams and get an idea of which of our records do we feel really good about and which of them were we maybe off the mark. For me, that was about 8 to 10 of them. So really looking forward to that. We're going to try
Oh, I
folding
just did
more
one
than.
each. Was I not supposed to just do one each for each category?
Oh, I
I
was
just picked
joking.
one.
I was
Oh,
joking that
okay.
I had a lot of
I
candidates in the
understand.
bad category.
I see, I see, I
Uh,
see.
yeah, I may mention in passing how many teams there were and then focus on the one that
Sure,
I
sure,
think is most
sure.
interesting. But we are also going to take a look at the divisions as they stand roughly a quarter of the way through the season. When you have 17 weeks, fun fact, that's a prime number. So there's not really a halfway, there's not really a quarter, but really excited to get started. We're going to put more of our news kind of in the game recaps here, but we do have a few things that we want to hit. Once again, let's start with kind of the most serious news of
I
the
wanna I
week.
wanna
We've got,
ask.
sure.
I put the name in the document, but I would also understand if we don't want to say the name. Does that make sense?
I I second that actually. I think that's
Yeah,
perfectly valid. Um, and so I'm just going to give this piece of
sure.
news without the name then. There was a follow up to the shooting that took place at the NFL headquarters. I guess over the summer, a few months ago. We didn't know a lot about the shooter at that time. We had some biographical information, but a lot of people were wondering if, as was indicated in their sort of note providing rationale for their actions, whether they actually had CTEs they may have indicated. And he has been posthumously diagnosed with CTE, which definitely is an interesting thing to consider. Obviously, nowhere near justification, nor do we intend to present it that way. But it does add maybe a little more context to the conversation, both around CTE and this particular incident.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before, but I'll briefly mention again in case we have any new listeners. CTE, a degenerative disease of your brain that starts in football when you suffer multiple kind of concussions, essentially multiple head injuries, impacts that you get from tackling, etc. And something that I think Jared very astutely pointed out, and we talked about this previously, not something you see instantly, something that happens over time. So by the time the real impact is hitting, these players are long gone, out of the league. You forgot about them, unless they're like big, big, big market names that are legendary Hall of Fame players or something like that. You're not really thinking about these players anymore. So therefore, the care is less because it's not impacting your actual viewing at the time. If I'm not mistaken, this particular case, this player was not even in the NFL. This was just somebody who played football at some point.
Yeah, I think high school was the last the highest
Right.
level I saw that they had played. So it it's concerning that this can manifest even for people who don't make this a career, let alone, of course, for those that do. And it is especially concerning when there are players in this league who have a documented and observed history of repeated concussions. The first player that comes to mind for me being Tua for the Dolphins is someone who kind of very publicly had to address the idea of whether he would retire or not because of his head injuries. And so it's it's a conversation that I think will hopefully continue to evolve. And there's no silver lining to what happened, but I think the dialogue around CTE needs to be elevated. I think the safety measures for players need to continue to be iterated upon, and hopefully we see ways to make the sport safer, especially for people playing at a high school level, where for them it might just be a hobby or an extracurricular that helps them build relationships, but isn't something that is necessarily that central to their life, right? And yet it could impact their ability to function in all aspects of life, and that's frightening, to be honest.
And additionally, this is a problem at the professional level where the NFL has billions of dollars they can dedicate to this. So if
Yeah.
they can't figure it out, how do you expect your random, rural town high school to take the appropriate measures to kind of counteract this, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think just to add on to that, you would hope that the NFL has the resources to pioneer, and ideally those pioneered solutions can then translate their way down
Trickle
to these
down.
local levels,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's a rare case. I think knowledge can trickle down maybe a little more readily than maybe Reagan would suggest about financials. Uh, anyway, sorry, just the U.S. history in me jumped there. But all of this to say, I think that this definitely raises a question that hopefully stays elevated in the public consciousness until we find better solutions for how to deal with players long term. Mental health feels like the wrong term, but the health of their brains and
Right.
their functioning, right?
Here's an idea that just popped into my head really quick. How hard would it be to have a fundraiser or a campaign where the NFL raises money and then uses that money to purchase Guardian caps for every, you know, not title. I don't remember the word for it in Texas, but it's like, I think 5A is the term, right? That's like a big
Mm.
school that has a big football team or something. 5A, 6A, I think is now the biggest. Um, Big schools with big football programs, how hard would it be to fundraise and get them the appropriate equipment?
Yeah, and I actually think Texas is a great place to initiate that because I think pretty iconically, don't mess with Texas. You know the origin of that phrase? You know where that came from, right?
I know I like here and there, but give me the origin. I don't know the
It's a
full
littering
story.
campaign. It's not like a war thing. It's not an American history thing. It's we don't want people to litter, so we came up with the tagline "Don't mess with Texas." And I think if you don't live in Texas, you still know that phrase,
Right.
because it's so. I say this to say I think Texas has a lot of cultural cachet in the football world specifically, and has a history of very effectively promoting inside of the state behaviors that are conducive to the safety and well-being of the community. And so not universally, but I think in that particular instance, right? And so this feels like another thing where the Guardian caps, unfortunately, are relatively unflattering. And therefore, you have to have a little bit more of a push behind getting people to wear them, especially if you don't want to make it mandatory. So, yeah, Texas would be a great.
Shout out to the players that consistently do.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be honest, I was a little bit in the like, how much difference does it make? It is pretty ugly, but I mean, there's just no reason not to. I mean, it's safety for free, right? You're not losing anything by wearing it. Maybe it's a little heavy, but yeah, get used to it over a couple games, then you don't think about it anymore. And it signals to everyone watching that you care about safety, and I think that that's important.
Tell you what, we'll talk about a game where a player wearing a Guardian cap scored 3 touchdowns, so couldn't have hampered him that much.
Yeah, I honestly think that, and here's just another idea, spitballing, and then we'll roll along here because we have kind of a long
I
show
talk too
planned.
much.
No, I listen, I think this matters. And I think the NFL has a really tight celebration policy. I think it would be really cool if they loosened the celebration policy for everyone who's wearing a Guardian cap. I think it would
Oh,
be like kind of really neat if it's like,
what a
oh, you
great
can,
idea.
yeah, because I mean, not only does that, give players a pretty clear and obvious incentive, but then also all the cool celebrations you see, they're wearing the cap, and then that makes the cap cool again, right?
Mm,
And I think that that'd be really neat. I don't think they would do that, but
no.
just something worth considering. Let's get the other serious news out of the way, unless you would like to talk on this anymore. I don't want to cut off the conversation early.
No, for sure. I mean, like you said, it got a big show. I thought this was a thing definitely worth jumping in right at the top, kind of hit the important issues first. I think this was a big one. Here's the other one, another reminder that sometimes it's bigger than football, right? Giants owner, president, and CEO John Mara announced he has been diagnosed with cancer. He is apparently getting the appropriate treatment and such. This was announced, I think, via statement that went out to social media, etc. Uh, no like super formal announcement of what cancer, how terminal it is, what stage it's in, etc. And he said, please, respect me and my family's privacy. Just wanted to kind of communicate that it is happening. So, um, I respect that approach a lot. I think it's important to not hide sort of like things from your fans. And I know like casual viewers do not know who the owner is or care about the owner in any meaningful way. But like maybe some of the diehard Giants fans are like, they know all the things their owner has done over time. So they have, a relatively tight relationship with the name at the very least. So when you hear stuff like this, it's like, oh my goodness. But yeah, saying here's what's happening, but please let me be a person, I think is a great way to do it. Obviously, wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, no one owes awareness of that to, like, it's you're never indebted to your fans to the point where you need to share that kind of thing per
Sure.
se. But I think it's a good it's a good move just to try building that clarity and communicate, hey, this is the situation. I think fans appreciate transparency when it comes. And so I also want to add, I see it's not in the news, but there's another high profile NFL official here, a coach in this case, diagnosed with cancer as well. Patriots defensive coordinator Terrell Williams uh, has prostate cancer and
Mm.
has been spending as much time with the team as he can, but has been away. And I believe it's, I want to say it's the linebackers coach who's taking over play calling on Sundays. The players wore shirts, T strong to sort of show support for him. And he was actually the Lions defensive line coach last year. And so someone who is a little more kind of in my awareness in general. And I think it's great when players show solidarity and support for members of the coaching staff, especially, he's the first year coordinator with a first year coach, right? So I feel like not all of that is guaranteed in the way that, Spagnuolo for the Chiefs had something like this happen. Of course, he's been there for years. He's an institution. And so um to rally around someone, even as you're just starting to build that long-term football relationship with them, I think is really cool. And I hope for a speedy recovery. To borrow, I guess, I mean, it's kind of the classic, swift and full recovery. But I really do just I hope he gets better and is
Nice
able
Taylor
to
Swift
get back to
reference.
football full time. What was the Swift reference there?
You just said Swift. You said the word Swift.
Oh, I said Swift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, no, but I think it's difficult, and definitely one of those things when a coach, or a broadcaster or a player has an illness or incident outside of the game. It definitely is a reminder that yes, we treat this as a source of fun and entertainment, but real people with real lives and real challenges. So
End of the day, just some guys in silly uniforms throwing a ball around.
yep.
And life's a little more than that. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
good to
would
take
I
that
would I
step
would
back.
agree. Tell us about this international game news here. Let's go ahead and move on into the football.
Yeah. So NFL announced they are going to make a multi-year commitment to play a minimum of three regular season games over the next five NFL seasons, starting in 2026 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. If I'm not mistaken, this was Packers Eagles week one last year was Brazil.
Hmm.
I think. Did we play week one in Brazil this year?
That was Chiefs Chargers was in
Six, yeah,
Brazil. I think they
yeah.
changed what city they played in from last year to this year.
Got it.
Um,
And I guess they liked the opening day being in Brazil enough to say, we'll play at least three games in 5 years. So the weird 60% overtime ratio there. I don't know how they came up with that number. It is a minimum, so perhaps they play more. But yeah, even a weird thing to make an announcement of. But just thought it was worth noting if people like international games, we had another one this weekend. We'll have another one this upcoming weekend.
yeah, listening to Heed the Call, there's someone who's on pretty regularly who just is like, oh, leave. It's like our game, it's like an American game, and we're sending it across the pond, but like we don't get Liverpool FC matches in Kansas or whatever, so it's kind of like this bizarre inversion with international games. And part of me recognizes that I think it's a little frustrating for maybe like the high profile games to be going to other countries, but you also want to give a good product. I think opening day is impactful, but not necessarily in a super specific way, to the point where I feel like, oh, okay, it's kind of fair to give up like opening day is a good one. Maybe you do like one of your holiday slate is somewhere, across the pond, stuff like that. I do think it is something that should be restricted to non-division games. I think it is a distinct disadvantage for someone's home division game, in this case the Chargers this year, to be on another continent. That feels a little
Right.
disingenuous, right?
And in
And I
general, like here one of your home games are in a different country. Congratulations.
Yeah, I personally think, because I think they want to get to the point where like every team is playing an international game. And that's the only way I can justify a 17 game schedule. Eight home, eight away, one international doesn't count as
Sure.
either or for any team. And then you just don't make any divisional matchups go across the pond, which I think is also very fair and I think a reasonable restraint, in my opinion. Um, that said, I think it's fun. I think it's cool to add new communities and new cultures and see how people enjoy the game internationally. And so I hope this continues in a way that encourages fairness for all teams involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the part about it for me that I enjoy is that the game is, of course, being spread to other places. Obviously, you can watch it from anywhere in the world, essentially, on TV or a streaming site or something like that. But to be able to go to a game, something that you would never dream of if you grew up in Brazil, for example, and you're our age as NFL fans, like you never think when you're 10 years old, there's going to be an NFL game here I can go to. But now there is. And if you wanted to go to opening day and you can't because your team is playing on another continent, oh well, they'll have 8 more games at home that you can
Yeah.
go to. You'll be
That's
okay.
true. And it's also, I mean, I would say the NFL is distinctly non-international the way that you guys have just been talking about Eurobasket. You can
Mhm.
go see NBA level talent go play in Eurobasket.
Right, right. That's a great
Um,
point.
and there's no comparison. Yes, flag football is being added to the Olympics, and I think that helps. I don't think it's the same, right? I mean, the World Cup exists for soccer. You can see some of the highest profile soccer across the world. I believe that, and America now has a major soccer league, right? So yeah, I think it's cool to give that opportunity, and I think it's meaningful to give that opportunity. And I would say like, if the Super Bowl was ever not in America, I'd kind of be like, that's a little maybe beyond. But
Yeah, yeah.
I would say regular season matchups matter. 1 out of 17, especially if it's like an NFC versus AFC, like Vikings Steelers is a great example. That game matters because it's a game, but it doesn't affect division standings. It doesn't affect conference standings. So all of that to say. Any other thoughts on the international slate?
No, that's it. I keep managing to talk way too much about something that is probably not that important.
I don't know. We care about it. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I like going over this stuff.
Damn, I hate
Um,
caring. How
let
much do you
me
care
let
about
me
this?
let me just hit this super fast because I we could talk about this for 40 minutes. Do you want to tell everyone
Mm,
who the halftime for Super Bowl 60 is going to be?
I don't think I could talk about it for 40 minutes because I don't think I can name a single song by Bad Bunny playing at
Yep.
the Super Bowl halftime. I saw it come up on commercials this weekend when we were watching games, and I was like, that's a weird way to do it, I guess. It was just like mid-commercial insert. Here's the Super Bowl halftime performer, by the way. And I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And then I like looked on social media and it was Adam Schefter posting about it. And I was like, oh, so this is the announcement. Got it.
Are
Um,
were they Apple commercials
cool.
by chance?
Maybe. I don't pay that much attention to
That's
commercials.
fair. Because I saw like I think Apple Music or Apple tweeted out like, oh, we're announcing this later because it's the presented by Apple Music halftime show.
I thought it
So
was, is it not, it's not Pepsi, isn't it always Pepsi?
um maybe not anymore. Maybe they bought it from
Oh,
Pepsi. I
wow.
remember it being Pepsi for a long time, but um I think it's now presented by Apple Music. So maybe
Wow.
Apple
I
Music
don't
and
care.
Pepsi tag teamed and when you're listening to Apple Music, grab a Pepsi, which I'm always thinking. Yeah, I the reason this is something we could talk about is the tweets that came out about this because
I didn't see
I go
that.
on Safari and like scroll through NFL news and then they have like the tweets on Safari that you just got to scroll
Yeah,
through
right, right,
tweets or
right, right,
whatever.
right.
And it's just there are a lot of conservatives who are not pleased with this choice.
Oh,
In
well,
part
sure.
because Bad Bunny declined to tour in America for fear that his concerts would be the source of ICE raids. And so for him to not be playing the Super Bowl, a lot of conservative individuals think it's hypocrisy. I've seen a lot of them post these, vitriolic messages and then pictures of him dressing like a woman, which he's done in, I guess, a few contexts, which I personally don't have a problem with, but these groups do.
All right,
And
all right. I'm
yeah,
a Bad Bunny fan. That's what I just learned. Thanks.
you're a Bad Bunny fan. Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate. He actually did an episode of SNL as I believe the musical guest, but he jumped in to a few of the sketches.
Hmm.
He did one with oh who's the Last of Us guy? Pedro Pascal, if I'm not mistaken. And
That is
unless I
Pedro
miss
Pascal. Crazy that you refer to him as the Last of Us guy, but go on.
sorry, that was just the only thing I could picture him in that moment. Sorry, the Fantastic Four First Steps actor.
That's
Uh,
crazier than The
maybe
Last
that
of
was a
Us
different
because it's
sketch, but
newer.
I know I was just thinking, what should I say? Mandalorian or something?
Mandalorian. I think he was first like relatively famous on Game of Thrones, which is random. He was in like one season.
Yeah, I didn't really watch. Yeah, he did sort of a sketch, I guess, with Pedro Pascal. Anyway,
Gotcha.
all of this to say, I know this is crucial SNL analysis. This is actually, if you could believe it, a football podcast, and let's just get into our wheel games because we're spinning our wheels proverbially over here.
Yeah, spinning our wheels for sure. So, what do we have to talk about here? My game. Thursday night football, first game of the week, primetime game. Seahawks, Cardinals. My team was the Cardinals this week. Funny enough, my team was the Seahawks last week, and I watched them blow out the Saints. So then I got to actually watch a real game in which they played a real NFL team, and that was nice. So here's what I got from that game. 23-20, by the way. Pretty close game throughout. Seahawks end up taking the victory, as probably to be expected. Worth mentioning, Cardinals donned the first of the rivalry uniforms in this game. Their rivalry uniforms, white, red, and because it's the desert, they looked a little dirty. That's how I will describe their rivalry uniform. I think I liked it more looking at it than I feel like I saw online. I feel like people really weren't vibing with these. Um, I think they were great, but I didn't think they were terrible.
I
You see them?
actually love their rivalry uniforms, and they may
Yeah,
be my favorite. And I actually went to Arizona most summers growing up. My grandparents lived there, and I felt like it just kind of reminded me of the sort of natural beauty of that arid environment because from afar, I think that white with speckled brown kind of matured into a sort of light gold almost. And I don't know, I thought it was a cool way to evoke sort of the beauty of the desert. And I think the storytelling of the jersey was really cool. And you guys, you and Dom on Two Man Game have put me on the idea of, a jersey, a city jersey, a rivalry jersey, whatever, should tell a story. And I think they
yeah.
did a good job with
That's
that.
what they love doing. They love like kind of what you just did, that explanation. They love kind of explaining, and that's why the jersey looks the way it does. So good on you. I mean, I honestly liked it. I think my opinion went down because so many other people's had a down opinion, and I kind of sponged it in. But when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, that's a cool jersey. Like
Yeah.
it's unique, it's interesting, and I feel like the NFL doesn't have a ton of that. So that was cool. Anyways, the actual football that was played. Jared, I regret to inform you, Sam Darnold looks like a legitimate quarterback. I don't know what Kevin O'Connell did to that guy last year. He looks good. He was making some good plays. And in the Cardinals defense that I think did have some injury, Will Johnson particularly, one of my defensive rookie of the year picks, was out in their secondary. But making plays just like quick. One play I remember particularly, he started scrambling, and then as he's getting to the line of scrimmage, he notices an open guy on his left and just like slings this sideways football on the line of scrimmage, basically. And it was like a super quick heads up play that got them some yards that I think some quarterbacks aren't going to get. And I don't think the stats necessarily jump off the page, but just from the eye test when I was watching, looks like he was making intelligent choices, good throws, leading a relatively competent offense in a good game. So that was an observation I had there. Surprisingly, I think in going into this year for the Seahawks, I'm doing the Seahawks first because they're not my team, but also they were my team last week, and I didn't really get to watch a good football game. Kenneth Walker the third still looks like he's got it over Zach Charbonnet, and I don't mean that in terms of the role. I mean that in terms of he looks like a better player, like to my eyes when I'm watching him. The yards per carry will tell you a different story because he has not been efficient the last 2 weeks. But he is that kind of running back that goes for the home run. He is trying to break to the outside to make a big play instead of filling in the A gap because that's what the play is designed to do, and he'll get 4 yards. That's kind of what Zach Charbonnet does. He's the disciplined guy. He's going to do exactly what you ask him to do, and that's fine. But Kenneth Walker really does look for the explosion. Sometimes it bites, sometimes it doesn't. And he just looks like he still has the juice, which I'm surprised because he's young, but he's had a couple of big injuries in his career. So that's another thing I noticed. And then lastly, in the defensive end, I believe he goes by Reek now. Reek Woolen used to be Tyreek Woolen, but I think the toe was cut off from the front of his name. Um, Pretty like relatively well known, propped up secondary player for them, corner. Pretty young still. Um, Lots of flags in this game. Lots of pass interference, illegal contact, whatever. There's like 8 different flags for the same exact thing that he got called for as the game progressed. And I didn't notice really any other player in their secondary getting picked on in this way. So, something worth keeping an eye on as their season progresses because their defense otherwise looks pretty strong. Any Seahawks comments you have for me?
Uh, no, I caught the end of this game and the Seahawks were controlling the whole way until the very end there when the Cardinals actually made it a game. Um, so, I think that speaks well to the Seahawks. I know it's not great to only lose by three, but if you're controlling for 3 quarters, then you can let them come back as long as they don't catch up.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned that because I said it was a good game. It was a good game at the end. The beginning was something, and I'm going to get into that here with the Cardinals. Started off, Kyler Murray looks upset a lot in this game.
Yeah.
Towards the end, he was getting better, but man, oh man, frustrated at the lack of offensive line protection, frustrated at the receivers. I'm going to get into Marvin Harrison Jr. in a second because this was a crazy game for him in a lot of different ways. Um, just looked frustrated with what the Cardinals are doing on offense out there. Not pleased. Going to the bench, head down, that kind of deal. Doesn't look like he's kind of vibing with his teammates at all. Trey Benson taking over the starting running back duties. James Conner injured last week for the season. Um, he's a second year player. He was a second round pick last year, so pretty highly touted for a running back coming out of college and hasn't played a ton in the NFL because James Conner was super reliable last year and played pretty much the whole season. Um, but Trey Benson looks good, man. He looks like I say, he has the juice, a phrase I've kind of adapted from like fantasy shows that I watch when they're talking about
Mhm.
fantasy players. But it's like, oh yeah, this guy hasn't been, he hasn't been Nick Chubb where he's got 50 years of people flying into him and tackling him. That hasn't happened yet. So he's still got that kind of burst of speed, is what I mean by that. And then biggest story for this game for me was Marvin Harrison Jr. I wrote he had a tale of two halves. That's exactly what happened, man. Um, there was this throw, and this happened last week. There's this throw in the first half. Marvin Harrison Jr. up, slants across the middle. Kyler Murray delivers the ball pretty much right here. It's like not in his chest, but like very easily catchable. His hands are there. Grabs it, getting tackled at from behind. The defender's right on him, and just bobbles the ball up right into a secondary player for the Seahawks.
Oh,
Interception going the other way. And he looked defeated. He looked like somebody on the verge of like mental breakdown levels. Like it looked rough. And a big narrative for him coming into this game was confidence because it's clear that he doesn't have it right now. Because this is not the first bad drop he's had this season. Um, and there were some other plays. I was like, oh, there was another play where one of the plays Kyler Murray looked frustrated. Marvin Harrison ran the complete wrong route. He was supposed to, I guess, run a corner route where he cuts up and then diagonally towards the sideline. Instead, he ran up and cut. He did a post cut in the middle. So as soon as he makes his cut, Kyler's throwing in the box. He's gonna thinks he's gonna be open in the corner. Cuts the middle of the field. The ball goes nowhere because he's not there. So that connection just wasn't really working. And that was the first half. Second half, made a goal line, basically mossed this player, catching it over his head for a touchdown. And it was like, oh, it was like a breath of relief, fresh air, much needed. Rest of the game, he looked pretty comfortable. So I was glad to see that. I hope that carries going on. I think a player selected number fourth overall in a draft that was quarterback, 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 wide receiver as the first four picks. I guarantee many teams called the Cardinals and said, we'll give you pick nine and a second round pick, blank, 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 to move up and
mhm.
selected this player because he was so highly touted coming out of Ohio State that this is what you need, especially when you have other guys in that draft class. Roma Dunze, for example, having a great season so far. Malik Nabers we'll talk about later. Um, and he has not looked like he was drafted before all those guys. So this is what you need to see for the Cardinals to be on the right trajectory, to be something that isn't mediocre for the rest of Kyler's career, or if Kyler's not their quarterback of the future, whomever. Last thing I'll touch on real quick, because I feel like, again, I'm talking forever. Cardinals defense looked pretty good. A couple of secondary injuries I mentioned already. Defense was holding Seattle to less than spectacular plays. Their drives were very methodical, kind of going down the field, short play after intermediate play after short play. No long bombs or anything like that. Really, they weren't giving up these huge plays. They were holding their own for most of the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Marvin Harrison because they were talking about it on some of the shows I was listening to. The moment when he scored that touchdown and then immediately like went down and put like his head, he took a knee and like
Yeah.
put his face in his kind of fist and was just clearly like it. There are times on the football field where you can see a player's raw excitement. It's rarer when you can see their like raw kind of like fear and sadness sort of like wash out of them, and that felt like a moment where you could see what he had been carrying kind of fall off his shoulders somewhat.
Mhm.
And it was really, I thought it was really cool. I think it's one of the things that makes sports exciting is um, when you just feel something so strongly that, everyone watching who aren't even in the same state as you, know what you're feeling. I think if the Cardinals had come back and won this game, I would feel the conviction that like, oh, Marvin Harrison's here, right? If you have that turnaround moment and then you
Mhm.
win, and it's like, oh, I have the resilience to turn a terrible night into a win. I'd be thinking, man, this guy's unstoppable. Hopefully, he still has that confidence, but not being able to pull the game out makes me a little concerned. There was some controversy as well on this game, if I recall, from the kicker kicking short of the landing zone. For those unfamiliar with the
That
kickoff
is why
rules,
they lost the game. Yes.
see, I think folks have made a good
Well,
point about this. It was heed the call. They were like, if it was out of the end zone, it would have been at the 35, not the 40. It's like a 5 yard difference if he had just given him a touchback. Um, and I think that that's actually kind of like a fair point. But all of this to say, because the kicker kicked short of the landing zone, that is a penalty that puts the ball at the 40-yard line, which is really strong field position, especially when the Seahawks needed only a field goal to win. Um, and they got that field goal, which is unfortunate because I was kind of hoping, I was kind of rooting for the Cardinals in this one, to be honest. Um,
yeah.
Still a good game, and it's really nothing against the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks have been so good for so much of our life that I like when new teams become good teams. I think that's a really fun dynamic. And the Cardinals had a stretch, but the Seahawks definitely had more long-term success, got to a few Super Bowls. So anyway, I think Cardinals need a signature win pretty badly because I don't think they've necessarily had that through the season so far.
They need, and they're kind of getting it on defense. I think part of the reason their defense is like looks better than I think you would think it is on paper. Veteran Calais Campbell returning to that roster after spending much of his career there. Um, this guy's like 40 years old out there, just making stops. But I know he's in the locker rooms, right? He's in people's ears. He's getting that side of the ball, I think, kind of where they need to be. Not just him alone, of course, but I'm saying additions like that. They don't really have anyone like that on offense. It's mostly younger players and players that haven't been super tenured with the Cardinals if they are older. So they don't have like a vocal leader, I think, on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and I don't want to criticize Kyler per se, um, but I've never gotten the impression that Kyler is that kind of leader, and that's okay. Not every player, not every quarterback needs to be. We expect that, but it's not necessarily. I think Jared Goff is a leader in a lot of ways we don't see, and I do have like a lot of faith in Jared. I'm not criticizing Jared Goff as a leader at all, but you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, who are both vocal. Taylor Decker is a super long time veteran for the Lions, and I think other teams are built that way as well, where you're injecting a veteran when maybe the quarterback just isn't as established or maybe the quarterback is a good leader. They're just not terribly vocal. I think there's like just different kinds of leadership, and having one or two guys who can just always turn to is really good um, for an offense and a defense, like you said. And yeah, I don't think there's a Cardinals offensive player right now who's like a super veteran. And I almost wonder if this team is hovering around 500 come trade deadline time. Maybe you trade for one of those guys who can kind of help get your team in potential playoff shape and help develop the culture you need for a playoff push. I think that would maybe be good for this team going forward.
Yeah, what's Larry up to? Can we get him to come back for a little bit or
Man, that'd be crazy. I Fitzgerald was one of the greatest players that won't get talked about enough, in my opinion. Um,
I agree.
I
I think
think
that's a good take.
I think that 10 years from now you're gonna have the Gen Alpha kids being like, oh my gosh, Pete Odell. Larry was different, man. Larry was just so cool. Yeah, I love Larry.
I
And
think the kids are actually already doing Pico Dell, but I
yeah,
digress.
Anyway, not trying to take a shot at Jared Goff's leadership. I think he's a great leader. Or Kyler's necessarily. I just
Stop
think
talking about the Lions.
I'm sorry. Listen, as a fan, I felt bad that I even potentially got in the question. Here, I'll make up to you. I'll talk about their rival. How's that?
There you
Um,
go. Thank you.
my wheel game ended up being a first for the season. We got our first tie, and I hope it's our only one because ties are mid. The Packers and Cowboys knotted this game 40-40, and it did not appear to be a game that was going to have quite this much scoring after the first half. Now, I am an iPad kid, so I have to have other things going on while I watch football for the most part. But I was obviously tracking the second half, and then I went back later actually and watched the first half. I was gaming with my family, and I don't feel bad for missing the first half for that reason. Uh, all of this to say, my takeaways for I guess I'll start with the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys played as well as you could have asked the Cowboys to play. I think they started slow. I think that it would be a small percentage of people who expected the Cowboys would tie the Packers. I think the Packers came in with a stronger reputation,
If you're
especially.
asking not Cowboy fans.
Oh, if you're asking not Cowboy fans, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there's just definitely, I came into this game looking at the Cowboys, having a defensive unit that is so significantly below average that they kind of had a bottom dweller perception in my mind. And so to come out and tie this game, I think is really impressive for the Cowboys. It's surprising. Uh, you gave up 40 points. That's not ideal. I think that you got a huge bailout from your special teams, and I'll have something to say about that here in a minute. But George Pickens looks like him right now. George Pickens is playing elite football, uh, and it gives me hope that even without CeeDee Lamb for a little while, that there's potential for these Cowboys to have a really noteworthy offense. And I think if nothing else, I look at the Cowboys right now as a team that I'm not putting in the playoff picture personally. I don't think they have enough to do it. But when you are, I think about. I'm so sorry because I most of my football knowledge is Lions knowledge. I think about Jared Goff going and playing the Rams in that year one under Dan Campbell and playing a really close game. I think there are some games that do have extra significance, and this one was definitely one of them, facing Micah Parsons on the other side. So for the Cowboys to come out and compete in a game that matters to your team and fight to a draw, that really matters to me when I'm evaluating a team, and I think that speaks well to Brian Schottenheimer as a coach. Let me jump over to the Packers. I think the Packers are a good team. I think that they have not proven that they are a dominant team yet. Obviously, week one, they strangled my Lions, and that's a quality win, right? Week two, they look dominant again, but it's just really challenging where I sit right now to say, oh, yeah, the Packers are definitely different. The Packers are definitely at a level that they just haven't been at before when you are letting 40 get hung on you. And frankly, I felt not taking enough advantage of the way the game was going in that first half. The Cowboys' offense was nothing doing. They had a chance to go up by two scores, and they do. They get that touchdown to go up 13-0. Then the extra point is blocked and returned by the Cowboys, and the tide of this game completely changed. Um, this game from the score, man, this feels like it's going to go the Packers' way. Suddenly, you let that moment in. As I was going through and rewatching the broadcast, they pulled this up at halftime as one of the Sunday Night Football storylines. Um, and this is a crazy stat. In the first three games, how many points do you think the Packers gave up in the first half?
Oh man, it must have been like 10.
It was six.
Yeah,
And then under that, last 41 seconds of the second quarter, 14, because you have a turnover in the Packers territory that leads to a quick touchdown strike, and the Cowboys are going into the half with the lead
yeah.
after having scored a touchdown of their own. And I'm not necessarily putting that on the defense, putting that on the offense is something that's going to happen all the time. You can't make those mistakes. There was a Jordan Love interception taken away by a defensive penalty. I noticed a number of holding calls in that first half from their offensive linemen, and I think what it's going to come down to for me, I believe the Packers can have great defensive execution. I think it's really, for me, I haven't seen their offense take over a game yet. And I think something that matters about offense is the offense controls the length of a game. A successful offense can decide whether you want to run out the clock or whether you want to pass. You control the flow and the momentum in that respect in a way that defense kind of can't do. Yes, you can maybe give yourself more possessions, but if your offense can't extend those possessions, it's troublesome. Uh, the Packers were really efficient in this game offensively for sure. I was looking back at the sort of play by play. They had a lot of plays in that 18 to 20 yard range on the ground and in the air, and that's super efficient, right? You do want maybe a little more ground and pound. They took a huge deep shot before their first score that paid off, but I want to see a little more from the Packers. I want to see. I came into this season wanting to see a killer gear from them on offense to believe this team's elite. It seemed like adding Micah might have made the difference on defense and made that the elite unit. And maybe they'll stabilize as a top five defense and give them some of that. But um, I think right now I have doubts about both sides of the ball turning into uh, playoff game winning units that you just kind of count on with a bullet, right? And the way that the last few years we've talked about the Ravens offense as what are you going to do, right? The Chiefs have shifted between offense and defense in that narrative. A couple other things I want to bring up super quickly. Jordan Love almost turned a tie into a loss at the very end of this game, rolling out to throw, tick, 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 time's coming off the clock, 1 second left. Um, and I believe maybe that was to
So
go into
close.
overtime, or maybe it was to be at the end of the game. Do you remember which one it was? I'm They were
I
both
believe it
like
was in. I believe it was in overtime.
I thought so too. It was.
Like it was the last play,
Yep.
almost because they
Yeah.
threw a pass down with 1 second on the clock.
I understand you want to win. It is an unbelievable gamble to potentially throw away. And I understand a tie's not satisfying and a win means more, but I mean, I think 3-2-1 and that ball's got to fly if you don't see it right away. Maybe that was a fault of the play design, but it didn't look like a play because they were deep in the red zone. It's not like you're waiting for a receiver to go down the field for 4 seconds. It's not like you had to have that grab to have a chance at kicking the field goal. They were comfortably in field goal range. I believe in
Yeah.
aggression. Take a shot. That shot should take no more than 3 seconds. Have a
I,
receiver run across the goal line. They're not open. Whew. All right, let's kick and take the tie and go home. Um, really, really, really risky play there for the
Crazy
Packers.
play.
Um, One thing about the broadcast that I thought was really silly. I know there was some criticism from the Heed the Call gang about the opening where they had this like Jerry Jones, Micah Parsons, like
Brother. Oh my God, it was so
yeah.
bad.
I honestly like I just kind of skipped over that. I was like, I don't really need to go back and watch this. But one of their storylines, they put up a graphic, and I think it's important to this is my message to people who are making graphics for sports games.
There you go.
I know the narrative you want to push. Sometimes it just ain't there. Walk along. The graphic has on the left Micah Parsons, and on the right the entire Cowboys defense. Okay. It mentions that Parson was in for 17 of 23 defensive snaps, and it mentions how many pass rush snaps there were. After the first half, Micah had 0 sacks and 1 pressure and 9 pass rush snaps. Cowboys had 1 sack and 4 pressures and 21 pass rush snaps. What story are we trying to tell there? If Micah had 2 sacks and the Cowboys had 1 sack, or he had 6 pressures and the Cowboys had 4 pressures, then you're like, wow, Micah's as good as their entire defense. That's crazy. But he wasn't really that close.
Yeah.
So I feel like, this graphic's a great idea to have in your back pocket if Mike is dominating. If he's not, it's okay to just scrap the graphic and go somewhere else with it. If he's not owning the game, he's not owning the game. And you don't look at this and go, wow. I mean, you're pitting him against 11 people, right? Even if you just focus on the defensive line, you're pitting him against what? 6 or 7 defensive linemen in the rotation and being like, oh, isn't he so much better? That's fine if he is actually playing better, but he really wasn't. Um, Dak had a funny comment after the game where they were talking about how Micah got him for a sack and at the very end of the game, and he's like, "Yeah, I think they're just calling that a sack for the narrative. I don't really think I was sacked, but that's whatever, right?" Um, I think the Packers are good. I think the Packers need to string together a few more signature wins where it looks like one unit is truly suffocating the other units. I think we have some questions about the Commanders right now that shade their week 2 win. I feel comfortable saying the week 1 Lions and the Lions they'll face in Ford Field later in the season aren't the same Lions. I want to see a few more really quality wins against really quality opponents or really satisfying blowouts of teams that are worse. Um, this game had a special, almost division like air to it, though. That's my take. Let me give you 45 more minutes of rambling about this game, unless you'd like to give your own thoughts, and then we can move on to the rest of the slate.
Yeah, I'll give a couple thoughts. I alluded to them earlier. Romeo Dobbs, Packers receiver, 3 touchdowns, Guardian Cap
Mm.
representative. You'll love to see it. Um, I also think it's worth noting something you mentioned about the Packers. Jordan Love, I think for a lot of the good Packer games, what happens is their defense is doing so well that their offense can kind of manage. And he has been a pretty good game manager for someone that doesn't have a ton of like starting experience, despite this being his 6th year in the league. Sometimes when you start going down like they did at the end of half, you got to do a little more than manage. You got to start taking some shots. And this is not all Jordan Love, right? He's probably not the play caller. I imagine that's the coordinator or the head coach or whomever. Um, and they have Matthew Golden, and I think every game Matthew Golden gets like 2 or 3 deep balls thrown at him. This week he caught one, and I'm pretty sure he ran the wrong route on because he was right next to Dontavian Wicks when he
Yep,
caught the
that was the
ball.
shot I mentioned at the start of the game. Yeah, where he was
Yeah.
basically bumping into his guy, but great catch.
Yeah, and like you have to have a little more than that. Like I think NFL teams, some NFL teams, their idea of take a shot is throw our, Marquez Valdez Scantling, right, down the field really fast, and if he looks kind of open, that's our deep shot. I think you got to be a little more creative than that, because I feel like the rest of their offense is very intermediate based, right? Here's some runs. Josh Jacobs very dominant on that front, not in this game particularly, just as a runner. Um, and then we can make the 10, 15, 20 yard passes, but I think getting more purposeful with your expanding the verticality of the field and sometimes taking risk that that matters, I think, for a good team. Um,
Oh,
so
you
the
reminded me of a sequence in this game. I'm so sorry. You
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
brought one into mind where it was like the Packers were, I think, 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 at the 50, tried to
Hmm.
get Cowboys to jump, didn't get them to jump, took the delay of game and punted. Um, I think we're at a point where great teams go for that every time. And I was really frustrated by that. And then the Cowboys went and pulled the same maneuver, but they were granted backed up at their like own 25.
Something I have seen in every week of football I've watched for the last 5 years. Somebody doing the go up to the line. We're clearly not actually running a play. We're just trying to get you off sides for the first down. Unethical. I'll say it. I'll say it. It's unethical.
Wow. Wow.
I don't like it. I don't like it. So thank you for bringing that up. Um, Packers defense, Micah, particularly that thing. Oh, brother, I was real tired of hearing about that halfway through the second
Mhm.
quarter. But boy, did I keep hearing about it. I have to make a confession. There was a time in my NFL fandom where Chris Collinsworth was one of my favorite commentators. And I don't know how that was possible because God, I'm just like, please stop. Please, please no more. I mean, like, I can't take it anymore, man. With the narrative stuff, and it's like, look at the Cowboys running the opposite direction of Micah Parsons. It's like, yeah, and if you look at, you know, Chris Jones and Aaron Donald in his prime and J.J. Watt and superior linemen, yeah, you probably do run the other way most of the time. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That seems pretty basic strategy to me.
Look at George Pickens. He's sprinting down the field away from my guy. Of course, right?
I don't yeah. So yeah, that was just something that I was like, oh brother. I don't know how I got there, but I'm not there anymore. So I apologize to people before that I've definitely told like I'd much rather listen to Chris Collinsworth than like Joe Buck. I used to be a real big Joe Buck hater. I kind of still am. But I think it's really the Joe Buck and Troy Aikman combo that grinds my gears sometimes. It's the pairing of the two. It's not necessarily either
Mm.
individually. Um, I digress. What else did I want to talk about from this game? Oh, someone you didn't mention, or at least if you did, it was in passing. Jake Ferguson. The guy is a target machine for the Cowboys. You mentioned George Pickens, who had a great game. Jake Ferguson had like 15 targets or something insane. Um, Number one scorer tight end fantasy right now. Nuts.
Yeah, and I spent my second round pick on a tight end, and you beat me with Jake Ferguson this week, so thanks for that.
And I have Brock Bowers in my other league, so I understand. I understand
Yeah,
your
we'll
pain.
we'll probably mention the Raiders later. I don't think it's Brock's fault. That's happening right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, okay. Any other thoughts? Packers, Cowboys. I'm glad you mentioned that on offense. You articulated it more eloquently than I did, but that is my concern with the Packers is if the defense isn't showing up, can the offense cover them? We have not seen that yet, and I'm worried about that. I think until I see a few offense picking up the defense performances, I'm not going to believe in this team as a Super Bowl contender because any given Sunday, your best unit might turn into a pumpkin, and you need everyone else to step up. So
Yeah, like can they hold a lead and maintain the ball long enough
yeah.
to not constantly punt? Yes. Can they win you a game? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I
That's a
mean, we
difference.
saw right at the end of the first half, they're losing a game that they were winning for, the first two quarters. So, all right. Relevant game time.
Relevant games. We'll spend less time on these than our wheel game. Our wheel games are the prime time matchups that we really focused on. Relevant games is a category that Jared and I have made where it's the games that I think have relevant narrative storylines or the game was relatively close, etc. And then we'll talk about some games that were not that. And we'll spend no time on those because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Anyways, first one I have on the docket here. Falcons 34 at home against the Commanders 27. Jaden Daniels injured for this game, second week in a row. Terry McLaurin as well out for them. I'll be honest with you, Jared. I slept through the noon slot. I had to go back and watch some of the games. When I was out with the flu or the something, whatever I had, um, sleep schedule got real wonky there because I was sleeping a lot during the day because I was like, I feel bad. I want to lay down and sleep. So, yeah, didn't watch a ton of the noon games, but injuries for the Commanders, I think. The reason I think this is notable for both teams, obviously 27 points is still a fine amount for your backup quarterback and squad without your leading receiver to make. I think it's more notable for the Falcons to go win this game after getting dominated 30-0 by the Panthers last week.
Yeah.
So big bounce back for them. Happy for that. Offense seems like they clicked a little bit today. Michael Penix had a relatively solid game after a total dud last week. So that's good. I'm just glad that they didn't come in here and get blown out by Marcus Mariota, basically.
Yeah. I will be honest. I told you I had a 12 quad box and I had the Lions game in that fifth slot. This game was completely and entirely off of my radar. I just
Yeah,
really was not motivated to watch or engage with it. I think it's important for I think the Falcons have to win this game, right? And I think the Falcons are
yeah,
turning into a team that we thought they would be, which is like 8-9, right?
right,
Um,
right.
they're they're winning some of the games they're supposed to, but also sometimes badly losing the games they're not supposed to. And division is weird. I get that, but um, I think this game matters because I think the Falcons are just a team that's going to need every win they can get because I don't trust them to be consistent. Um, I think yeah, with the Commanders having a backup quarterback, you're right. 27 is a lot. It's probably bad news for the Falcons. Um, Once they get Jaden back, I expect that. Actually, I'll say this. Once they get Jaden back, I think it's going to be very important to monitor who the Commanders are because I don't exactly think they were dominant before Jaden Daniels went down with injury. So I'm curious to see where we evaluate the Commanders once they're back close to full strength offensively there.
Yeah, for sure. Why don't you take the next one for me?
Giants 21, Chargers 18. No, few people expected the Giants to come in and win this game with their rookie quarterback, but Jackson Dart got it done, not without a cost. Wide receiver Malik Nabers has suffered a torn ACL and will miss the remainder of this season. I am firmly of the belief that Malik Nabers will be in contention to be a top three, if not top one wide receiver in the NFL. All respect to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He just has a sort of electricity to the way he plays. His catches are magnetic, that athleticism. He just sort of has that pop off the screen quality. And so it's really devastating to see an injury to a young player who I think could become or has the potential to become one of the defining players of his kind of draft class and generation there, alongside maybe Brian Robinson, Marvin Harrison Jr., if he can figure it out. Um,
Brian Thomas.
my headphones are dying, so I'm going to vamp while I turn the volume up on my computer so I can hear you. Can you still hear me?
I could hear you. You said Brian Robinson, Brian Thomas Jr.
You, so whatever you just said, I hope was not insulting to me and those I care for in this
It
world.
was very insulting. Um, are you back?
Why
Are you
don't
back
you
with
why
us?
don't you tell me what you think about this contest? That's what
Sure.
I
I'll
want to
tell
know.
you. I'll tell you what you can't hear about this contest. Um, yeah, Malik Nabers' injury, really sad. I think. Can you hear me now?
I'm back. I'm
Great.
so back.
Um, You said, I'll say it. This is the third time I've now said it, so sorry for the listener. You said Brian Robinson. Brian Thomas is the player you were comparing him to, I believe.
I Yes, it is. To the listener, I formally apologize that my technical issues caused you to hear the same correction thrice. I'll go back to the drawing board on this one for sure. Not very ethical of me. Yes, Brian Thomas, I apologize, the receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars there. Um, all of that to say, this isn't, again, I was more following the score for this one. Chargers offensive tackle Joe Alt suffered a high ankle sprain and will miss some time. That is that is really really difficult for a team already missing their premier left tackle for the year, and it raises some concerns. I have more to say about this game in terms of my relationship to it, but I need to wait for a different segment to get to that. Uh, the Giants, I will also mention, play kicker Graham Gano on IR, and I actually didn't recognize their kicker, which to me is always noteworthy. I feel like a lot of times there's the same roughly 36 kickers in the
Sure.
league, right? When Parker Romo took over for Young Wei I knew both of those players.
Right.
Parker Romo had competed in Detroit for a spot, and then Jake Moody gets replaced, and like I know most of these names. The Cleveland kicker, I knew after week one, and so to see a name I hadn't seen a kicker before, I just found that kind of exciting. Another one to add to the sort of file of knowledge that I don't truly need in this life, but I am happy to have.
Yeah, I think the Joe Alt injury is going to be big for the Chargers. We already talked about a long time ago, Rashawn Slater, other tackle being out for the season. Joe Alt shifted from right tackle to left tackle. Now Joe Alt's going to be out. Who's the left tackle? I don't know. Tell you what, didn't matter that much. Amari Hampton, first full game as a starter, exploded out of the backfield. Looked pretty good, only 12 carries, but good work in the passing game as well. Happy for him. Obviously, not happy for Najee Harris. Talked about last week, torn Achilles out for the season. But Amari Hampton seems to be comfortable in that role. And if we're talking fantasy for a second, I can complain that in my league that I'm not in with you, my other league, my first overall pick in that league, Bijan Robinson, however you say his name. There was a whole thing about it. Um, and then, I have 2 and 3 back to back. I got Brock Bowers, as you did in our league. And then I drafted Lad McConkey as my first wide receiver off the board. Looks like the third wide receiver over there. And this is not a real football issue. Whatever's working. The Chargers have looked relatively good. Yes, they lose a game against a team that is likely inferior to them, but they are 3-1 still. And Quentin Johnston is kind of exploding as a receiver for them. First round pick a couple years ago, big drop issues. No more apparently because he's the guy. Keenan Allen signed it back over there after a season away in Chicago, and him and Justin Herbert just click like that. So sad to see Lad fall down the depth chart, not really get targeted too much here. But overall, Chargers still going to be a good team. Jackson Dart for the Giants end. A lot of running, a lot of designed runs for him already in his first game out of the backfield. QB draws, which I thought was interesting that they went with that right away out of the gate. And he's making the smart play. He's sliding. Occasionally, he scrambled outside the pocket. Malik Nabers. I'll get to that in a second because I didn't really talk about it. Scadaboo, this was his first game as a starting running back with Tyrone Tracy being injured and maybe on IR. I don't remember. Um, Dislocated shoulder. But Scadaboo looked pretty good out of the backfield for them as well. Malik Neighbors, I think you said top three, top one, something like that. Receiver, I would say, like, if I were thinking at the beginning of the season, where would I put Malik Neighbors? Like, the number that came to my mind was five. Um, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, I think you got to put up there still, uh, despite their subpar QB situations right now. Amon-Ra has done it time and time again. I'm a little biased towards that guy, of course.
Mhm.
Name I didn't hear that is just a freak this year. Puka Nakua, man, that guy is awesome.
Puka rules.
He's
Puka
so
rules.
good.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then like if Malik Neighbors was your next name, I wouldn't be that mad. I thought of CeeDee Lamb, but he looked like he was having a down season prior to his injury, so I would understand if you put Malik over him. And then after that, I would have to literally go through every team and look, and I don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
sad to see. Obviously, young player, catastrophic injury, season is over. Hope he bounces back next year and is healthy because for a season and 4 games worth, the guys had at least 4 starting quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Russell Wilson, now Jackson Dart, and he has looked freaking awesome with all of them. So
Yeah.
he's clearly a talent and someone I think the Giants want to be a big part of their future. Wish nothing but the best for him. Expect to see a lot more Wan'Dale Robinson, I guess, Darius Slayton. Not a ton of high profile receivers left on that
Yeah,
roster.
I want to clarify for the listener. I don't think Malik Neighbors was a top three receiver going into this game. I think he has the
Eventually.
potential to be that for
For
sure.
sure.
Yeah, I would definitely put 4 or 5. I think at some point Jefferson and Chase will. I guess they're still kind of in their prime, but like 5 years from now, they may start to age into a still very productive but less electric role, and then maybe at that point, Malik would be in his prime, something like that. But anyway, last thing I want to mention: it is really hard to play a quarterback who has not gotten any NFL starts just because you don't have tape on him, right? You can design the offense around him in a way you can't anticipate if you're the Chargers. And so I'm not flipping on the Chargers right now. I think they're going to be just fine. And with the exception of, I guess, the offensive line concerns, which could change the trajectory of their season. But all of that to say, I think like, oh, you lose this game and you panic. Oh, we dropped into the Giants. No, I think that just kind of happens. Let's talk about the next game here. Let's give a little time to this one, and then we can maybe start churning through the rest of these here. Eagles 31, Bucks 25. It seems like you have trivia you want to ask me, even though I promise you I already know the answer.
Okay, you know the answer.
I do, unfortunately. Let,
Rats.
let's give it Jeopardy style to the listener here. The
Yeah.
Eagles completed how many passes in the second half? Boom, bum, bum, bum,
Dude.
bum, 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 ba, ba, ba. Zero. It was zero.
Zero.
Um,
None. Won
they
this
had
game, by the
a
way.
crazy to see that they can be off for one half and on for another half, and one half of them being on seems like it's enough to win the game. We saw it last week. We saw it again this week. Different half, same result. And this felt to me like I feel that the Eagles played maybe a subpar game, like a game that was not their full potential, and the Bucks still lost, and that feels about right for where the Bucks look right now. They don't seem like they are necessarily playing at a top competitor level. They lost to a top competitor, but they kept it close. They're no joke, but I don't think they're necessarily week in and week out killers. But Baker can do anything.
Yeah, here's my takeaways from this one. Post game, AJ Brown posts song lyrics on Twitter that are basically I'm not appreciated. Please throw me the ball. Is I guess the comparison that fans will make, despite his team being 4-0, coming off of a Super Bowl, he is not getting utilized the way he wants to. Frustrated about that. Not a heavy passing attack right now. And you're 4-0, so you don't need to be. I mean that's kind of what it
Yeah.
boils down to. Like you're winning. It's not like you're 1-3 and you're not getting the ball. That I think I would understand a little more. Um, Another thing I will say about this. Nope, it's escaping my mind. Oh, other side of the ball. Chris Godwin came back. Welcome back, Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is out, hamstring injury. Chris Godwin looked pretty good in his first game back, getting utilized kind of the normal way. Egbuka continues to look very good as well. as a steady target for Baker. So both of those things are good. Both teams, like the way, like you said, the way this game played out, kind of makes sense to me for where these squads are at. I think both very talented. Here, I have another trivia for you that I don't have written down. Eagles yards versus yards against the Eagles defense. So Eagles offensive yards against Eagles defensive yards. Where do you think, like, how close do you think they are?
I think the offense got 30 more yards than the defense gave up.
And I mean, sorry, season long, first four
Oh,
weeks,
season long? I
four
think
and
the
OT.
offense I think the offense maybe has per game, you mean?
Yeah, whatever.
I would say like, man, I don't feel like the offense has been killing. I would say that I would expect yeah, I'll say like maybe the offense has 50 to 100 more yards than the defense has been giving up on average.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know the answer, but I know this. I know the Eagles
Okay.
have been outgained the fourth most this season in terms of yards on offense compared to yards on defense. Other teams are gaining way more yards against them than they are putting up on offense, yet they are 4-0.
So I was completely wrong. Excellent. Okay.
Their defense has allowed way more yards than their offense has put up.
And I think now that I think about it, looking at how some of the points last week were special teams assisted, that actually doesn't surprise me a ton. And yeah, the offense having a total dud showing that actually makes sense. It kind of seems like right now, I don't think we've seen the best of the Eagles yet this season, which is a little scary.
Mhm.
Um, I think also that they had a little bit of fortune against the Rams there. Let's move on to our next game here because we'll be here till 11 p.m. This will be a 4 hour show here if we aren't careful.
Probably.
Uh, Jags 26, Niners 21. Watching this closely to see if Ricky Pearsall could give me anything more in fantasy here in that last little stretch. He didn't, but props to the Jaguars for coming away with a win. Did you see the Liam Cohen Robert Saleh exchange after this game?
I did. I did. I saw Liam Cohen said something like, "Don't say my name, don't put my name in your mouth," something like that. I have no clue what it's about, but I'm sure you'll explain it to me.
So Sala this week talked about how coaches from the Rams coaching tree have a sophisticated legal sign stealing system where they're able to analyze the defensive, I guess, signals, hand signals, calls, whatever, um, and find kind of exploitable matchups. He said like a few times a game or whatever, where they can put themselves, I think he said like, oh, they put themselves in opportune situations because they're able to detect how the defense calls and signals itself. Um, and I guess that pissed Cohen off to say that, oh, you're legally stealing signs. And yeah, so it got pretty heated. I was listening to Heed the Call. They said I think Salah said something like, "I'm gonna I'm gonna kill you if you keep talking to me" or something like that. Salah got real pissed at him. Um, and
Seems like a
it
fine
seems like God, it's
or
got to be
something.
right. Yeah, it's got to be. I would imagine. I think it's definitely not very decorous, right? And it doesn't necessarily reflect well on either of them to be in that situation. But uh, I think it's nice to see some juice from your head coach, um, as a Jags fan, if you are one. And this is a game I didn't expect the Jaguars to win. So to go
No, for
to
sure.
San Francisco and steal a game and be tied for the lead in your division, you've got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Jags fan.
Yeah, we have a guy on our Instagram who I don't know if we've talked about this before. I literally have no recollection.
Mm-mm.
Um, we had a short that I released with the AFC South records. I think we had the Jags at like 5-12, 6-11, something like that. He commented on it, zero ball knowledge. I said, I think we have at least one ball knowledge. And then he talked about why he thinks the Jags are good. And I said, That's fair. I understand the argument. And then we went back and forth a little bit. He talked about betting like 5 grand or something that the Jags would have 10 wins and win the division. And I said, "Can you donate it to charity?" And he and like we had a little thing. And then he commented 2 weeks ago. I didn't even see it when they won their first game. And was like, "That's one." And then he commented today. And he was like, "We're looking good. How y'all feeling?" I was like, "That's funny." I was like, "I'm happy, man. I'm happy your team's 3-1. Like, that's awesome. No, no hard foul for me. Like, I'm glad to be wrong about this."
Yeah, no, I appreciate that they're holding us accountable. I'm rooting for them, especially if you put a lot of money down. And honestly, right now, I mean, the Colts look really good, but
hmm
I definitely think we're going to talk about divisions, but I kind of think it's the Colts and Jaguars division to fight over right now.
Which is
So,
just like if you were gonna say you knew that starting the season, make a podcast because you're smart, and I'm
yeah,
not.
or be a guest on ours to raise our clout if you would.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, looking like Brock Purdy once again questionable for Thursday night football, may not
hmm
play after this game. And, if I'm a Niners fan right now, I'm just concerned at the quarterback position. I'm concerned for the health of my team. Apparently, Pearsall got banged up again as well, if I recall correctly, maybe strained
He did.
PCL or something like that. So, um, health's a huge
Shout out
concern.
Alex Ham is his name from Florida. Shout out to you for the engagement and the follow on Instagram. I appreciate the back and forth.
Yeah, no, all respect. We like to ham it up here. I'm sorry, but you're
There you
you're
go.
you're putting our feet to the fire, and I appreciate it. As someone, if especially it seems like you are a Jags fan, as someone who has been the fan of a fan base that has not given me a lot over the years and is now experiencing success, I truly hope you get to experience that yourself. It's a great feeling.
That's gonna be a short. I hope you know. Um,
Hey, that's fine with me. I don't mind if people know that I wish well to others. That's
right,
I
right.
think I think that's ethical ball, honestly.
It's ethical ball, baby. I referenced this game as the Mac Jones Bowl before last week because on the Niners this year, on the Jags last year. I just released another short recently, Coach of the Year picks. Um, And my one was Kyle Shanahan, and my two was Liam Cohen. Didn't put that together. So,
Wow.
so both 3-1, baby. I'm looking good. I want to backtrack a second, talk about Offensive Player of the Year. I had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Yikes, yikes, so far. And I had Bijan Robinson as my sleeper. Not really a sleeper. Great by me for my sleeper. The other two not looking good. You had Jameer Gibbs. That's looking good. You had Malik Nabers. Not your fault. It was looking good until the unfortunate injury. And then you had Patrick Mahomes as your sleeper offensive player of the year from the quarterback position. So um, a lot of those receivers that we thought were going to be dominant, not so much.
Yeah. My MVP pick was Joe Burrow. So hey, if he comes back and leads into the postseason in December, he's going to be looking like their most valuable player
With
for
4 games
sure.
played, Joe Burrow's taking over.
Puts up 2,000 yards. No, I know that won't happen, but yeah, let's go ahead and move along here. We haven't even gotten to
I
the
just
divisions
keep
yet.
speaking.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give my thoughts on Rams Colts super quick. I didn't watch this game super closely. It was 27-20 though. I did have an eye on it. Colts looked pretty competitive. Obviously, the stories coming out of that game, I'll let you report on the AD Mitchell situation there for the Colts. This is the kind of game you needed to make your 3-0 start look legit. Yes, it's a loss, but I am eating my words on the Colts.
They still look legit, yeah, because it's a loss, but it's a close loss against a Rams team that I think looks way like I thought they were going to be good. They look even better than I imagined. AD Mitchell, yeah, Adnan Mitchell, two plays in this game that are absolutely killer. Play number one, game is tied, I believe, at this point. Catches an amazing pass on the sideline, like a great catch, stiff arms defender down the sideline for a touchdown, except before he gets in the end zone, he is trying to extend the ball, kind of celebrate, bobbles it, fumbles it, back of the end zone, touchback Rams ball. No touchdown. 7 points gone like that over a relatively bonehead play. And then later in the game, Jonathan Taylor had like a 60-yard rushing touchdown. AD Mitchell called for holding. So Two touchdowns in the same game that you're kind of responsible for your team not getting tough blow. I'm sure there's going to be some film study there, some locker room conversations. How much will he play next week and going forward? Still, obviously, a really young player. But other than that, I do think the Colts, even though they lost this game for a couple bonehead plays ultimately, because it was tied with 55 seconds left, and the Rams one play touchdown them 2-2 at will for like 80 yards. It was crazy. Um,
Oh, that was a really that was an awesome play. And I remember writing some joke for this game in my head, like driving today or something. I can't remember it now, but yeah, great play for Atwell. I was actually reading afterwards. It seemed like a lot of his teammates were really happy that he scored, and they were kind of talking about how he hadn't been featured that much in the offense, and they were all kind of rallying around like, yeah, we really like him, and it was great for him to get that score. So, super awesome moment. Longest touchdown pass of Stafford's career. Fun fact. Um,
wow.
which is pretty crazy. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I think it's just rare to get an 80 plus yard touchdown. I think that's
Never
just
really
really
played with
un
a ton of speed demon receivers in
yeah.
Detroit.
I mean, Calvin was legit, but he wasn't like he was a I would say all time catch point kind of receiver where he would just
Hmm.
beat anyone covering him, but he wasn't. I mean, he could catch and run also. I mean, he was good at everything, but he wasn't like Tyreek Hill
Throw it
where he's
up,
just
I'll get it.
speeding. Yeah. Um, he was so sweet. Uh, Bears 25, Raiders 24. I wanted the Bears to stay competitive in this game so that they would have to throw to Brock Bowers more. But I didn't want the Bears to win. I did not get what I wanted. Bears sneak away on that, on that last second outcome there.
Another block kick. Another Bears, not Bears specifically, but Bears had another block kick. Big theme last week, not as much this week. Um, Raiders had a far kick, but Daniel Carlson, very good kicker, very makeable kick for him, blocked on the very last play. Caleb Williams looked awesome to start the game. I think the Raiders looked pretty bad to start the game. Those things kind of came to the middle to end up with this relatively close result. Geno Smith looked so bad. This is the second game of four that he has looked terrible, like terrible. He's looked fine for two games, and he has looked like not a playable quarterback in two games. Three interceptions against the Bears secondary that we talked about. Their best corner, all pro level corner, out on IR. They have other corners and other secondary players that are out as well. I do believe Kevin Byard was responsible for two of the picks, and Kevin Byard is awesome. So I'm not that surprised about that. Yeah, Brock Bowers doesn't look healthy still. Looks like he's still moving a little slow out there. I think that's a big reason for him. But Ashton Genty, three touchdowns exploded in this game. Two, I think, were passing. So getting some use out of the backfield. And he's looked relatively dull this season, not because of him, but because their offensive line has been so bad that he hasn't really had room to operate. So I was glad to see that he had some use in this game finally, after being picked sixth overall, which is very, very high for a running back.
Yeah, it was a great sign for the Raiders to get Genty going. I'm worried about the Raiders season at this point. We had talked about them having like a competency floor, especially
Hmm.
with Geno, and that floor has fallen out. The Raiders now looking like a unimpressive 1-3.
Yeah, we found a trap door and we found the basement, actually. There's a little more floor here than we thought.
For sure. Okay, with that, let's now spin ahead to our games that either were relatively expected results maybe or just didn't necessarily make the sort of marquee in terms of the headlines and the results there. Would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll start Steelers 24 versus Vikings at home in Ireland. Naturally, where they, of course, play. And they
Mhm.
play again internationally this week. One thing I'll note, Vikings offensive tackle Brian O'Neill suffered a sprained MCL. Is going to miss some time. I note that because, of course, Christian Darrisaw has already missed time this season, so don't want more injuries there. The reason I put this game in bogus games is because it started at 8:30 a.m. and I certainly wasn't going to be awake to watch it, and I don't really care what happened because it was the Steelers versus Carson Wentz's Vikings in Ireland.
Yeah, I do have a few takeaways from this, if I may. Apparently, just from what I've been, listening to this week, the Steelers have a huge presence in Ireland. Make this a Steelers home game. If they're going to have rough home field advantage there.
I bet
Vikings
Aaron
are out.
Rodgers goes hard in Ireland. I don't know why. Like it just feels like that's a place that people would be like, yeah, we love that guy.
Yeah, I think he said he had a Guinness, or something that week.
Right.
Anyway, um, yeah, the Steelers were in control of this game, and some just poor kind of situational football time management stuff gave the Vikings way more opportunities than they should have had to sneak back
Yeah,
into
the
this
final
game.
score is closer than you think the game would be.
And I think that's bad for the Steelers, right? If this was a competitive 24-21, yeah, you want the Steelers to do better, but the fact that it was an uncompetitive 24-21 that they almost fumbled away with that clock management anyway, I don't like that. I think the Steelers aren't a team that can afford to not dot their I's and cross their T's. I just don't think they have that kind of offensive talent where they can be a little sloppy and still run away with games. They're a team that I think, if they're firing on all cylinders and not letting anyone in through the back door, they have a chance to be competitive against a lot of the other wild card level teams. Don't let the Vikings back into this game. Steelers. Um, Texans 26, Titans 0. I don't want to root for someone to get fired. I don't think that's very ethical. But unfortunately, after this game, all I could think about was the potential of the Titans moving on from their head coach. And that's just because you can't get I mean, I guess, the Falcons and the Panthers is 30-0. I get that this is similar, but I mean, the Titans have looked somewhat competitive in those first two games and then just fallen off a cliff. And I was keeping my eye on this game. I wanted good things to happen to the Titans this season, as I've mentioned before. Instead, they are an earned 0-4. You just can't win in the league when you're playing like this. And I haven't seen the indication of the coach rallying, getting people invested right. Um, I just despair. I feel despair.
Will the Titans have the number one overall pick in back-to-back years? Maybe, because golly, I don't know what they're doing out there. Texans team looked real bad coming off three not great losses. Both of these teams 0-3 coming out of the game. So even if they lost a competitive game, that's fine. But yeah, getting shut out not at home, sorry, on the road. Rough, rough for them.
Yeah, I this does not make me believe the Texans are any better than I thought they were last week. I think their offense is still I will actually say this about the Titans, and the reason this game was so frustrating is they held the Texans to 6 points for the vast majority of this game. If I recall, it wasn't until maybe late third that the Texans started to pull away. That's winning defense. The
Yeah,
offense just gave them no help, right? You can't do that. You're not a team that's good enough. I was kind of like what I was saying with the Steelers, but to the nth degree. You're not a team that's good enough to give up games and still win them. If you're putting yourself in a position to win, you have to have the ability to close those miracle games, those games where you're playing above your weight, where your opponent's unexpectedly not very good. Like you can't shut those opportunities out, and instead you got shut out. So yikes.
good call. I'll take Patriots 42, Panthers 13. Patriots at home for this game. Um, if we're kind of doing the one-liner theme, will the real Panthers please stand up? 30-0 against the Falcons, and then you get destroyed by Drake May and the Patriots, who have looked okay this year, but they're not this crazy good team. So I don't know what happened here, and I don't know what's going to happen going forward because they've shown us two very different teams in the last 2 weeks.
Uh, yeah, I don't. This is another one of those games where the Panthers turn back into a non-competitive team. Patriots take advantage of that, which is great. Haven't seen enough from the Patriots to know whether this is going to be an anomalous result. I don't expect them to put up 40 that much this season. If they start doing it regularly, it's a good sign for the team. I'll move on. Bills 31, Saints 19. Titans, this is how you go 0-4. The Saints were in this game for most
Yeah,
of
I
the
was gonna say this
contest.
was competitive for a lot of it.
Yeah, I know it's a two-score game, but it was a one-score game for most of it. I was kind of tracking those last 10 minutes there. It was in one of my squares, and I I was really I think games like this that you expect to be a drubbing and then aren't, they're really fun. They provide you with unexpected hope. I know the Saints turned to dust before the Seahawks last week, as you saw, but hey, if you can hang close with a few other top teams in the league, I'm actually going to be feeling pretty optimistic about what the Saints coaching staff, helmed by Kellen Moore, can do.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Next, Lions 34 versus Browns 10. Oh yeah. Feels real good after the Packers only could put up 13 against the Browns. Um, and of course, we unfortunately lost to the Packers week one. Lions offense looks like we're there, we're clicking. So that's nice to see. The Browns defense, I think, now have multiple games where teams are scoring a lot on them, but I don't think it's their fault. I think they're just playing a lot of really good teams with good offense.
Mhm.
Um, but their offense is not helping because their defense is out on the field a lot. A couple things I'll note. The Browns placed offensive tackle DeWand Jones on IR before the game. That doesn't help their offense. After the game, receivers Cedric Tillman and DeAndre Carter for the Browns going to both miss several weeks with what's reported to be a hamstring and knee injury, respectively, one for each. For the Lions, DJ Reed carted off the field during the game. Um, can you give me a little on that injury? What was it?
Um, God, I want to say, I believe it was a hamstring, and from what I've heard, Dan Campbell said not going to be season ending. I think Rappaport reported an IR candidate. And if he doesn't go on IR this week, that's a good sign that he'll probably be back in the next 4 or 5 weeks, which is great. Terrell Arnold hurt his shoulder, but is expected to return, and his injury was less serious than DJ Reed's.
Yeah, two big ones. Lastly, a trade that happened after the game. Cleveland sent a 2027 sixth round pick for Texans offensive tackle Cam Robinson. Did start in week one, not starting anymore, and a 2027. So put an offensive tackle on IR. You take another offensive tackle for relatively low cost. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I obviously watched this game start to finish. Their O line got butchered, um, by Hutchinson, honestly, specifically. I don't put this on the Browns defense really. The game was
No.
20-10 until going into the fourth quarter. Seven of those Lions points are a punt return. Um, it it really is one of those situations where if the offense was better, and we talked about this with the Packers too. I think this is emerging as something that I'm looking for from teams is do they have an offense good enough to set the pace? Because if not, even if you have a capable defense, it puts them in a tough position, right? If the Browns defense had the Packers offense right now, I think the Browns would probably be, you know, at least 3-1. So
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
just difficult to let that unit down. Uh, I'll take this next game here. Chiefs 37, Ravens 20. My one liner is, why did we have this in the irrelevant games? And I
Two
only
weeks in a
say this,
row. Oh, like why
I
did I put it here?
yes. What was
Yeah.
your thinking as to why this was? I have a thought, but I want to know what your thought was.
I mean, I put it in the irrelevant games because the game was boring to
Yep.
watch.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah.
it was close but boring, and then it was not close and still boring. And so that's kind of how it progressed. Of course, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. What is your
No,
thought?
I was looking at this and I was like, we totally missed this. Everyone who listens is going to be like, why isn't this in the relevant games? If you were watching, this was not a 17-point game. Chiefs controlled from start to finish. Ravens looked kind of just not really with it second week in a row. Their defense just has countless injuries. I mean,
Yeah,
they just
lots
keep
of injuries.
keep losing dudes. Van Noy already out. Matabike, their star D tackle, missing the last 2 weeks, is now put on season-ending IR for a neck injury. You mentioned here Nate Wiggins carted off with an elbow injury. I don't have the names in front of me, but
Marlon
I want to
Humphrey, I
say
believe, is going to be
Marlon
missing
Humphrey.
some
I mean,
time too.
yeah, their defense is gutted, right? And then the big one, Lamar Jackson exited late in the third with a hamstring injury, is expected to miss multiple weeks.
It's crazy because when he originally came off the field, it was on his own power.
Mhm.
And it was like there was no injury bells, and the broadcaster thought he was getting benched because like no one said anything about it. Like there was no, he didn't see limp, he didn't see anything. He just Lamar got pulled off, Cooper Rush went in, and they were like I know it's not that close, but like it's the third quarter, but Cooper Rush is in. Like, what's happening? And then like a couple minutes later, they're like, oh, okay, apparently he's injured. Um, but yeah, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm of the mind that if my quarterback has any injury, their protocol is to lay on the turf and let me pick them up. I don't, like I'm sure walking off on his own power didn't make a big difference, but if there's even a chance that you exacerbate that, yeah, this is a good game for the Chiefs. I don't know how much of this is the Ravens offense sputtering and just giving the Chiefs more opportunities. I know a lot of people were propping up X Worthy this week. I personally didn't have much of an appraisal of their receiver room this week, so I don't want to speak from my keister here. But yeah, I think this is a win that you're really happy to have as the Chiefs getting back to 500. I think you feel a lot better as a fan after that 0-2 start. Ravens have a chance because their division just looks kind of non-competitive, with the exception of the Steelers. But they are just stacking the mountain to try to climb to get back into this season, and it is looking really difficult for them.
Yeah. Did want to shout out Leo Chenal. I had to look up how to spell his name because I had no idea how. Chiefs linebacker. Guy's good, man. Made a lot of plays in this
Mm.
game. A lot of big plays on that side of the ball. And they just always have a guy like that. Just random guy. Like there's the Chris Jones, which everyone knows. But then I think the rest of their defense is kind of these rotation of like random people you've never heard of before, and you probably won't really think about that much after they leave the Chiefs. Um, I did want to mention you brought him up earlier, Spagnola. I know him. You know why I know him? Because literally every game I watch that the Chiefs are playing, they talk about him constantly. Um,
Mm.
which, if he's that good, that's fine. I just mentioned they have a lot of kind of whatever players that I don't really know about, and then they make this really cohesive, good defensive unit. So, it probably is credit to Steve Spagnuolo. But if we're going to constantly talk about him, maybe we should start doing that with some other DCs around the league too.
Yeah, I'm hoping that in general, I think the coordinators are great to elevate both because they're talked about less often and because it kind of spreads the weight of the dialogue in the booth. You're not just talking about the quarterback, you're not just talking about the star receiver. Now we're talking about the coach and the coordinators. I think it's good to kind of expand the reach of that. Dolphins Jets is you.
It is me. First of the Monday night slate last night, 6:15 was the kickoff. I was still at work when this game started. Dolphins rivalry uniform, black and teal. I liked it. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and then I was looking at it on the field, and I was like, this is like a nice like pace change for their kind of typical aquamarine color or whatever you want to call it. 27-21 implies a close game. This was not a close game. Jets scored a lot in garbage time. Dolphins had control most of the way. Worth noting after the game, Dolphins waived cornerback second round pick 2 years ago, Cam Robinson, off of the non-football injury list. Another corner gone for the Dolphins. That Minka Fitzpatrick take continues to age like milk as the season goes on, and I will live to be the death of me. But of course, the big news from this game: Tyreek Hill carted off the field for what was a dislocated knee, brought to the hospital, which rang alarm bells in people's head. I was listening to a podcast today, and apparently the reason they do that is because there's an artery down there that if it's damaged and you don't address it in like 60 hours, it's permanently damaged and you cannot recover it. So that's why it's like a serious thing. But when he got to the hospital and they did MRIs, etc., also discovered that he tore some ligaments in his knee, including his ACL, but also some other ligaments as well. Earlier today, he had successful surgery on all of that stuff. So obviously, he is going to miss the rest of this season. The goal is that he comes back week 1 of next season. Tyreek Hill is up there in age and is someone that relies a lot on his elite speed to kind of space the field for that Dolphins offense. So hope nothing but the best. He's been a guy throughout his career that I think his personality can be a little tumultuous for people. But I will say, for someone that just went through everything I described, when he got carted off that field, really took it like a champ. Like, really good attitude about it, kind of smiling at people. Like, we've seen guys cry and stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad. Like, obviously, it's a terrible, traumatic, emotional injury. I understand why you would cry. Um, but, seemed like he wanted to not distract his teammates and kind of keep their heads held high for the game that they were actively winning when he did get injured. So, did want to give props to him for that because I have never torn an ACL or dislocated my knee or both at the same time, but I can't imagine it feels good. So,
Yeah. He apparently FaceTimed Teron Armstead, former Dolphins offensive tackle, and the first thing he said was like, "Oh, I'm just glad we got out of there with a win." So it seemed like he was very team focused, which I admire. I do wonder whether some of those, question marks about his ability to gel with another team, especially if he's going to come back in a condition that would make him probably not the lead option for a team. Does that maybe create some barriers to him reacclimating with the Dolphins or going somewhere else? I don't necessarily. I feel it feels a little macabre to speculate, especially fresh after the injury there. I hope that he recovers and is able to um, be the player that he's been, such an electric, such a well-known player in this league. And yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was really cool to see how he took the injury, and I think that probably moved a lot of people. I thought it was pretty awesome to, especially this is a really random thought, but like, man, if you're like a kid at your first Dolphins game and your dad got you like the child medium hill jersey or whatever, and you
mhm,
just watched him get hurt, and you're like, oh no, he's my favorite player, and like you're just forming your love of football, and you see him just give you a big thumbs up and a smile, I would feel a lot better, if I'm like,
for sure.
you know, I'm a 25-year-old man with very little investment in the Dolphins, right? But if
Yeah.
you're someone who's just discovering football and just discovering your love of the game, um, I was there when Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last year, and that was really difficult. So yeah, I hope that Tyreek Hill comes back. I hope that he gels with a team, and the team that he's with, Dolphins or otherwise, accepts him, and he has a lot of success, um, pending the resolution of some off-field stuff. All right,
Yeah.
I'll take the last
Thanks,
one here.
Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, garbage time to secure my fantasy victory over Jared this week. Appreciate that.
Secured by 40 points. Um,
I wasn't gonna say it. I was gonna let you get out of there with the.
no,
I
it's all
see.
right. It's all right. I mean, I put up 120, which I think was like sixth or seventh in the league. So not a great week
It's a
necessarily
big
for me.
fantasy week.
But I mean, when you drop 160 on somebody, that would have defeated, I think, all but one of our people in our league. I don't feel that bad about that.
Yeah.
Um, when Fields, I was like, oh, the Jets look really bad. This is really good, and they fumbled in the first quarter on the goal line. This was the Jets should have won this game. For anyone watching, the Dolphins got a couple breaks because the Jets collapsed in on themselves that gave them the win here, I think. But I was like, oh, we're good. And then he has a beautiful, like 40-yard slicing touchdown run that's just incredibly athletic and technical. And I was like, all right, now I don't have to think about fantasy anymore. Uh,
Yeah, good.
Broncos 28, Bengals 3. I feel I have a responsibility to see through the games that I'm watching to make sure my commentary is accurate. I turned this one off with about 4 minutes to go. It was a miserably uninteresting contest with nothing to show for it at all.
Do you like
I
the
only
the
wish.
note that I wrote?
I think I wrote that.
That makes sense too.
Yeah. I wrote this game occurred, which was all I had to say. I actually liked the Monday night doubleheader because it allowed two mediocre games to not require my full focus, right? I was able to sort of jump back and forth between the best moments of both games. That formula works better when one of the games has moments worth noting. This one did
Right.
not.
Right.
Um, you know, Good for the Broncos, bad for the Bengals. I'm so sorry that this is your season, Bengals fans. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and
Trade for
call
a
an audible.
quarterback.
Trade for a quarter. I don't even know if that would be enough, right? I mean, with their defense being what it is. Anyway, I'm gonna call an audible. I'm gonna say maybe we look at the divisions another week. I also feel like we've kind of covered them in passing but I do want to
Sure.
talk briefly about our record predictions. Are you okay with making that change?
I will do it briefly. I spent so much time cropping out these division pictures that I'm a little sad, but I
Well,
also don't want to be here till midnight, so.
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think we can go into each team. We yap. It's gonna be yapping catnip for us. So
I think it usually is Jared, but I'll take some of the blame this time.
you're the one who said I'm talking too much twice this episode. So
Did I? I probably just giving you a hard time.
whatever. It's fine. I talk
Yeah.
too much, and I can accept that. Coin wrote a whole song about it. Anyway, a little coin pull for the room. Let's talk about our good, our bad, our ugly. What predictions are looking good? What predictions not so good? And what predictions are a yikes? We're gonna start with the AFC. We're gonna do
You guys are happy with this super creative name I came up with all on my own.
yeah. That should be a turn of phrase more people use, the good, the bad, the ugly. Anyway, let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the AFC and let's start with Damon. What was your pick for?
My good pick for my record predictions. Gonna be the Buffalo Bills, baby. 4-0. Um which I guess isn't really that surprising. They did have that big comeback victory over the Ravens in week one. And then the rest of the victories have looked pretty sound. Why do I think this is good for me? I predicted them to have the number one record in the AFC, 15-2. So they need to start off hot for that to be the case. And so far, it has been the case. And they've looked like one of the best teams in football. So not a crazy hot take or anything. But, and I'm sure this team will come up, there's some teams that we thought were going to have good records that have not looked good to start the season. So I'm glad the Bills have not let me down in that regard.
Um, yeah, I think that's a great, it's a great good. They definitely do look like one of the most competitive teams in the AFC. Or yeah, so good pick there. My good picks, I had three teams because I picked every game individually, where I have their record perfect so far, and I made those teams my good. Oddly enough, this was the Cincinnati Bengals for me. I picked the Bengals to go 2-2, winning their first two, dropping their next two. Obviously, I thought Minnesota was a different type of team, and then Denver, I think even if Burrow was healthy, I probably would have stuck with Denver as the winner there. The wins over the Browns and Jaguars they came away with. Does it feel like as much of I'm not pretending it's an achievement, obviously with Burrow getting hurt, that made things come together. But as I look at this game by game slate, I have them winning their last three games December 21st, 27th, and January 4th against the Dolphins, Cardinals, and Browns. And the fact that that's around when Joe Burrow will get back, I may unfortunately have had some sort of like ESP into this.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, I also picked them to be good at the end of the year, which granted against weaker teams, but with the way Jake Browning has played, unfortunately, I kind of feel like they need a little bit more than just playing a bad opponent to have a convincing win. So we'll
Worth
see if
noting, you are
Burrow
much
even.
lower on the Bengals than me. So your Bengals takes are looking more accurate season long than mine for sure.
Yeah, I have them at 8-9 on the season. I
And that's
imagine they'll come in
before Joe Burrow's injury.
pre-Joe. Yep. I imagine they'll come in under that. I don't think they necessarily looked super competitive with Joe in the lineup. They beat the Browns by 1 point. So um, the Browns missed a field goal to win that game. So that's my AFC good because I got that record perfect. Cincinnati 2-2. What is your bad?
Yeah, I should talk about my process a little bit because I liked that you talked about how you picked game by game. That's what you went by. My process was the team's record plus like the vibes of the team season long. Is that do I think it's going to pan out to what I originally predicted? So I think the Bills fit that mold. They've been pretty tried and true so far. My bad pick. What team is not looking so good? How about this? Not that I think this team is necessarily dominant, but the Steelers are 3-1. I was very low on the Steelers. I predicted them to go 6-11. So they already have half of the win total that I projected because I was very low on them. And not that they are this world-beating team. All their victories are pretty close. All their victories are against teams that I do think they are on kind of the same competitive level with. Um, I would have picked Oh no, never mind. Seahawks did beat them. I was like, let's say I would have picked the Seahawks over them. Seahawks are their one loss, but like the Jets are literally 0-4, so that's one of their wins. They just beat the Carson Wentz Vikings overseas. Like that's not a crazy victory either. I do not remember who they beat last week. Not on, not last week, week before last week. Let me look real quick. The Patriots. So
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's not like they're beating like these crazy teams, but starting off 3-1, looking relatively competent, not looking good for my season long prediction. Because I do think they're not going to be as bad now as 6-11. I think they'll come in with like an 8-9, that kind of win, ultimately, but not 6 wins, probably.
Yeah, I don't think that's like a terrible misplay there. I don't think that they look like right now a team where their worst case for the rest of the season is 6-11, but I don't think they look like their best case is, 13 and 4. So, um, I had a couple where my season outlooks look good, but my records were flipped here. Um, the Chargers are 3-1 and the Dolphins are 1-3. Through week 4, the Dolphins I predicted to be 3-1 and the Chargers I predicted to be 1-3. So even though I predicted Miami to be a 5-win team and the Chargers to be a 9-win team, I clearly did not properly appraise the start of their season. Dolphins came out super slow, and the Chargers came out looking like a contender. And I don't think the close loss to the Giants necessarily disqualifies that as well. So I think the Giants are probably going to end up over 9-8. I would probably put them closer to a 12-win team, depending on how much they're affected by the health of the offensive line. And I think a lot of Miami fans right now would maybe, I don't know, 5 wins. I mean, you beat the Jets, who are one of the three 0-4 teams in this league. Doesn't necessarily inspire a ton of confidence. You might be able to rack up a few wins against the Panthers or the Browns, but I don't know. I unfortunately think it's been a pretty pessimistic season for the Dolphins. And I thought it was going to be more of the same, except the wheels of their early success were just going to come out sooner. But no, they've come out looking pretty soft, and we were talking about their coach potentially being fired. So um, I was really bad in the AFC just in general. I had listed 5 teams that could have been in this slot for me, but I opted when choosing my good, bad, ugly to pick results that I don't think anyone saw coming, unless I was truly so wrong that it merited discussing. So,
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, they haven't looked great coming out. Of course, the Tyreek injury is not going to help with that for the season outlook, so I understand that. Let's go with the ugly. Here's what I had for the ugly. Oh boy. Who did the Dolphins play last night? They played the now 0-4 New York Jets.
ooh, it's tough.
I had the Jets at 9-8, man. Justin Fields, believer. Aaron Glenn, believer. I thought the Dolphins, I had them above the Dolphins and the Patriots. Um, that's not looking great right now as they just lost the Dolphins, and I think the Patriots have clearly displayed they're a better team so far in the season. Um, and yeah, I mean, I know Justin Fields was out with the concussion, right? Missed a couple games with that, but he hasn't been this dominant force when he's out there. Right? He's a fine fantasy quarterback. So he gets you the 40-yard touchdown run, like you mentioned, but he's not leading a successful offense in a consistent manner. I think their defense hasn't quite been the, stop the opponent to defense that I thought they could have been, maybe with some kind of hoorah from Aaron Glenn. Um, but yeah, it hasn't been that. So I had them ending the season, granted, one game positive. Right now, they are winless. So that's looking pretty ugly for me.
Yeah, I went and I realized I didn't think I'd looked at the Jets. I actually predicted them to be 0-4. I did predict them on the season to go 7-10, but I was pessimistic about the start. I respect that you would hope in the Jets. I would say, if I were to go back and pick another bad, I was maybe a little higher on the Patriots than I should have been. I don't think they've necessarily proven themselves as very competitive. We kind of had our AFC East pet projects, and it turns out neither of them have played to the level that we believed they might. The reason I wanted to do this review is because I had 2 teams that I so utterly failed on that I would be remiss not to bring it up.
Okay.
Folks, I predicted that the Indianapolis Colts were going to go 3-14. They are 3-1.
Hey, they started that
Uh,
losing streak today, baby. Let's
that's
go.
what I'm saying. I mean, I think they recognized I needed this. This is one of those where I don't think a lot of people had hope in the Colts, and so
Yeah.
I think I maybe just overcorrected for how bad I thought they were going to be. I'm sure a lot of people maybe had them in that 6 to 8 win range. And they were just kind of the victim of me. I mean, I just thought they had no juice coming into the season, no energy, no vibes. They were just like this blank floating in the ether, right? Like that depowered spaceship just blinking out of orbit. Uh, Whoops, Daniel Jones is elite? Question mark. And the Colts.
Indiana Jones, elite nickname.
I the Rich Eisen show uses Danny Diamonds, which I kind of like that one as
Mm.
well. He's formerly known as Danny Dimes. Danny Diamonds, Indiana Jones. Take your pick. Either way, he's making me look like a darn fool right now. And heading into the Raiders, hosting the Raiders in Week 5, I think I will continue to have egg on my face going forward. The other one, I predicted a National Football League team to go 16-1, which is, fun fact, ridiculous. And I did so for the Baltimore Ravens, who have won as many games as I predicted they would lose in the entire season through 4 weeks. Now, I'm okay with being wrong about the Lions game, which I predicted them to win. In fact, I thought they were going to go undefeated until week 17.
Yeah.
It is possible that these Ravens, as with the injuries they're facing, are not in the playoffs. 16-1 peak. Uh, that is my ugly, and boy, was it ugly. Let's go to the
That
NFC.
that's the one I knew for a fact was coming.
Oh, yeah.
And of course I didn't include it for that reason because I knew that you were going to bring them up because you were even higher than me. I think I did have them like 13 or 14 wins. So I'm not that far behind. I think the injuries play a part in it. Tough start of the season schedule wise, but yeah, 1-3 going to the 1-3 Texans. That'll be a fun game, I'm sure. Um, yeah, NFC. Why don't you
Um,
start us off this time?
okay, I said I had 3 teams that I got their record perfectly right, and that's true. I just forgot that the Giants lost 3 games and not two because they did drop that game against the Cowboys, which is unfortunate. But I'll keep them as my good team, and I'll tell you why. For some reason, and I remember saying when we did this, I was like, why did I pick the Giants to win this game? I picked them to win Week 4, and they did. I'm different. What can I say?
That's pretty
Come here
big.
for elite football knowledge. I thought the Chargers were going to have to travel. Some concerns about that offensive line. Hey, the Giants pulled that game out, a significant win for their season. I have them going 6-11 on the year, and I still think that's very reasonable. They have an incredibly challenging schedule, but I felt very proud of what I thought was a perfect prediction until I actually looked at it again and realized I'm a fool. If I am going to go off perfect predictions, my nth level chess brain, playing in a sphere that others don't even know. I did see the Saints going 0-4. So yeah, I'm different there, but I feel like I feel pleased with my prediction for them. I have a feeling your good team may be one of the ones I mentioned, but I could be wrong.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, my good team's the Saints. Why is it the Saints? I had them going 1-16 for the season. And so far, they look like a team capable of going 1-16 because
Yep.
not only are they 0-4, aside from a relatively competitive half against the Bills, they've looked awful. They have looked like a terrible football team. So, 1-16, I looked back and I was like, that's an insane prediction. Not out of the realm of possibilities. We're still in, baby. We're still in on the Saints having a god-awful record. And I'm happy with myself for thinking that they could stoop so low and to see that they've done that so far.
Yeah, I'm glad we both were sufficiently pessimistic about the Saints.
Let's
But yeah, I
go.
mean, you made the one win pick looks possible right now. And that's kind of crazy to think about. My bad team is the Niners. I predicted them to go 12-5 this year. I predicted them to go 4-0 through their first 4 weeks, and instead they fumbled the Jacksonville bag. And when I think about it, oh, that's only one win-loss difference. I think I didn't realize what bad could look like until I checked my AFC teams. But I don't think these Niners look very good. I think I understand they've been banged up with Mac Jones, but with all of these health concerns, 12 and 5, they don't feel 12 and 5 to me. Uh, there's games on their schedule that look winnable for sure, and their schedule is so soft they might still get there. But the Colts are not an easy out. I had them sweeping Seattle. Seattle looks real. I think that they could get some resistance from the Giants potentially based on what we've seen. And I get that that's just the fluctuation of the season, but I'm just a little bit worried about the Niners as a 12 and 5 team that I thought would probably be at least a 10-win feeling team, even if their record said 12. They might be an 8-win team that wins 12 because of their schedule and then not have much success in the playoffs as a result. I think I had too much optimism in them.
I mean, I was right there with you. I didn't have the 49ers as my bad pick, but similarly, and the entire NFC West had high records due to the soft schedules that they played. And though the Niners are 3-1, it's a weak 3-1, like you said. I think that's eloquently put. My bad, my bad that I have for the NFC, the Bucks, who are
Mm.
3-1. I predicted the Bucks to go 10-7. Because it seems like whoever wins the NFC South is going 10-7 or 9-8. Like those are the two records they're allowed to have. Basically, the Bucks so far 3-1. Their only loss coming against the Eagles, Super Bowl champion Eagles, who are 4-0, and they only lost by 6 points. Now we already talked about that game. You mentioned the Eagles did not play their best football. Bucks are out Mike Evans, for example, for the next couple of weeks, but I think I was not high enough on the capability of this offense with Baker Mayfield at the helm, with Egbuka kind of exploding right out the gates. Am I supposed to know that's going to happen? No. Um, Godwin coming back and kind of already looking like he's good, and then the defense doing good enough. Now, all of their games have been one possession games. The three wins all they won all like the last 2 minutes. So they're not like, oh my God, the Bucks are dominating. But I do think, based on the schedule they played so far, um, this is a team that could have 12 wins, 13 wins if I want to be like super optimistic. I think 10-7 is a little low, especially with how the rest of the NFC South looks. Uh, just, just bad division. And I knew it was a bad division. I think it's even worse than I thought because I thought the Falcons would be more competitive, and so far that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, did you look at like the totality of their schedule because the end of their schedule is unbelievably looking unbelievably soft.
Yeah,
From week 13 to 18, Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers again. I predicted them to lose two of those games. If I was predicting again, I don't think I would. They are.
right.
I also had them going 10-7. That's so funny. Um, yeah, yeah. I think the NFC South is not putting up a big wall on them right now. My ugly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised if they walked into the playoffs as the 3 seed instead of the 4 seed. Like I kind of penciled a bit at the start of the season.
That's a great way to put it. I don't think it necessarily even gives me more confidence in them if they do. I think they're just kind of benefactors of that schedule.
Yeah,
I gotta take a mea culpa here. This is my ugly, and it's ugly. I have this team winning literally 10 straight games after the first 4 weeks, so you can't be that mad at me. Man, I had the Eagles 1-3, and they are undefeated. Uh, and
yeah,
there are not many teams that can claim that title. It's them. It's the Bills. I don't know if there's anyone else who's undefeated that comes to mind.
yeah. I know the
That might be,
Chargers were there. I know the Colts were there. They both
yep.
lost.
Niners were as well. So yeah, I had them dropping the Kansas City game. I think they were in pretty decent shape for most of that game. And then yeah, they had some pretty tough halves against the Bucks and the Rams, but I predicted them to go 12-5 on the season, and we're still waiting for them to have one of those five. So unless they start to crumble down the stretch, and they do have some really difficult matchups, I don't see him getting all the way down to 5 losses based on such a hot start, especially
Hmm.
against a couple other competitive teams.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I had them at 14-3, so I'm okay with
You're in
where
good
I
shape.
am right now.
You're in good
Um,
shape.
my ugly, it's a team we've talked about. Do you have any idea who it is?
Team we've talked about already today.
Yeah, in this uh whatever you call it segment.
It's an NFC team. Would it be like the Cardinals? I don't know.
It's the Giants, man. It's the Giants.
Oh wow.
I had the Giants going 2-15. I
Wow.
think part of it was I really didn't believe in Russell Wilson, but I also thought he was going to hang on to that starting job a little longer than 3 weeks. I didn't expect the dart show to appear so soon. Now, to be fair, with the Nabers injury, this will be a question mark going forward. But they have one of the two wins already, so unless they win one of the next 14 games, it's not looking too good for me. Um, 13 games, not 14. But yeah, I think Jackson Dart looks also better out of the gate than I imagined he would. Not saying the Chargers have some stalwart defense and he showed them up, but you run quarterbacks out there that haven't done it before, and you see incompetence, and I didn't really see a lot of that this week from him. So if he can continue to maintain that offense as the defense, even though I did hype them up in the offseason, I still didn't expect the team to win a lot. That defensive line that I talked about is there. It's putting pressure on those opposing offenses. So that's good. I think your record 6-11, a much more realistic outlook for this team season long. So if that ends up being the record, I'm 4 wins off, and that's a lot of wins.
Yeah. I took more of a like looking at what I predicted so far in the games, and I think you focus more on the season outlook. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're gonna hit two. I do. I would argue that week
Hot
five gives
take.
them a week five gives them a great shot at it. I mean, they have a really hard schedule. I mean, they play a lot of just heavy
Yeah.
hitters after heavy hitters.
I
And
think
week
that is
one,
why their record was so low originally.
yeah. And we have no tape. We now have 1 week of tape on Dart that other teams can scan and maybe he'll get found out a little bit. And it was a 1 week fluke, and that maybe gives you a shot to be closer to the truth. But yeah, they're feeling hope in MetLife, and that's it's a good thing for them.
Yeah. All right. Now that we're 5 hours into our podcast, we can segue to next week. Hey, hey, next week will be short. This is actually shorter than, we recap. We got to talk about all the injuries and stuff. This is like, here's next week. Okay. Um, so we're almost there. It's time, Jared. You know what it's time for?
It's wheel time, baby.
That's right. It's wheel time.
If you haven't
Wheel
listened before,
time.
we spin the wheel. We get a team. We have to watch that team's game, evaluate that team. Last week I had Packers and you had Cardinals.
Yep.
So I'm hoping to get something AFC this week so that I can actually broaden my knowledge pool, or the Panthers because I just kind of really want to watch the Panthers for no reason. So
Fair. You are seeing the wheel, right? You're seeing it, making sure you're
I am
seeing it
seeing
because
it. Yeah, I got eyes on the prize here.
great. Worth mentioning, the theme for me in the wheels is that I keep getting teams that I've already watched because they played one of my other teams. This week, the Cardinals play the Titans. So it would be very fitting if I got the Titans as my wheel team. Be hilarious.
That would be
Um,
crazy.
no idea who went first. I never know. I never remember who went first the week prior.
Isn't it
Uh,
that you're first on evens and I'm first on odds or something?
it is something like that.
Because I was
Remember which
first week one, which means it is week five,
five.
which
So
means
you're
I am
first.
first.
Okay, I'm gonna predict. I think predictions are fun. I'm gonna predict that Jared gets the Chargers. I don't know why. You
I
gotta.
I, I no, I'm not gonna guess for my own. I'm gonna guess for yours. You take the
Okay.
roll around here. Let's do it.
Worth mentioning: Falcons, Bears, Packers, Steelers on bye. I removed them from the wheel.
Oh boy, I can't escape the NFC to save my life. This
The
is the
Washington
Vikings game.
Commanders. Guess who the Washington Commanders play in week 5?
Oh, I was just looking at everyone's schedules and I can't remember. Is it the
The
Panthers?
Chargers, baby. I'm right
Oh,
still.
oh,
Let's go.
that's crazy. I don't know how you saw that light, but that is genius. I'm gonna look at okay, what matchup looks like it's gonna be the worst matchup of the week, and have you seen either of those teams in the game? Because you just keep
It,
getting kind of clunkers, man. I mean,
Giant
Seahawks,
Saints. Giant Saints would be rough. Titans
Giants, Saints is
Cardinals is
tough.
down there.
I think, yeah. I honestly, just to be different, because you already said Titans, I'm gonna say you get the Giants this week.
All right, here we
It'd be
go.
funnier if you got the Saints, but it won't quite be that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who I get. We can't do this.
Oh, we can't do this. Okay.
We can't do this. For the listener, I spun the Chargers. That's the same game as Jared, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to keep the Chargers on the wheel for future reference. Um, my
It's clear
Chargers
you have a
prediction,
Chargers connection today, though.
looking good,
That's
looking good. I'm charged up. I was worried I was going to get the Chiefs, but it just made me sick to my stomach for no reason. So,
I'm charged up, you say, after potting for 3 hours last night and 3 hours tonight.
all right, my
Okay,
hometown.
hey,
Not
that's
really my
something.
hometown, but
Houston, that's
closest
pretty
to my
good.
hometown. Yeah, I'm actually really excited about their game this week. Here, I'll talk about it for a second as I stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
The Texans play the Ravens. They're both 1-3. Um, that's crazy because we thought both of these teams were going to be division winners, and right now they have both frauds. So, Cooper Rush versus C.J. Stroud. Who will run a worse offense? It's a great question because the Ravens have a good offense, but do I trust Cooper Rush? I don't know. The Texans have a bad offense. Period. Their defense
Yep.
is good though. So, but on the flip side, the Texans' bad offense is going against this very banged up Ravens defense that you talked about. Um, I think the Texans are going to win, man. I think the Ravens are going to be 1-4 and sad
Wow.
after
I,
putting the foot to the Titans. They get a little momentum. Lamar's out. Their
yeah,
defense is destroyed with injuries, and the Texans defense is good enough to make Cooper Rush's life miserable. So,
this is, did you watch the Minecraft Fallen Kingdom like parody music video growing up by chance?
if I did, I don't remember it.
It was
I
Viva
feel
La
like
Vida from Coldplay, but it was rewritten with Minecraft lyrics. And I bring this up because it's about a king who, like, essentially loses his kingdom and then leaps off of a building at the end. And it's very dramatic. And I
nice.
feel like King Henry will be making his last stand because if there's one piece of the Ravens that can go without anything around him, it is King Henry. And I think that if he plays a monster vintage game, against a former divisional foe from when he was with the Titans, that could level this game. If both of these teams come out scoring less than 20 points, I'm willing to like ship off on these teams for the year because hooey. Um that's a great game. I think that Commanders Chargers is an objectively good game. It's just one that I'm not as personally invested in. It's also concurrent with Lions Bengals, so I will be watching this recorded at a later time because that gets my priority in the household, and then I will give Commanders Chargers my time. I'll be watching the score, and maybe I'll do the quad box thing again, especially with the Bengals looking how they look. I think this is a great time to be watching the Commanders because if Jaden Daniels comes back, we can get a proper appraisal of where the Commanders might be 5 weeks into the season. They have not looked like world beaters so far, especially with a backup quarterback that muddies the waters. I'm really curious to see with Jaden, are they real? As for the Chargers, I expect a bounce back from them. I don't think the Commanders' defense is fierce enough to put up a ton of resistance on an offense that's been pretty productive. Either way, this is going to be a great litmus test for a team that we thought would be potentially a top contender and a team that has looked like a top contender. Let's see if they can change that narrative for the better or for the worse this week.
Yeah, that's a good call by you. I do think looking at their slate here, this seems like one of the games that seems most even talent-wise, I feel.
Hmm.
Um, for the two teams comparatively, of course, the Commanders' record is going to look a little worse with Jaden Daniels being out, and them losing to the Falcons this week. But I do like both of these teams. I think they are both kind of, at the very least, a wild card lock, assuming health. So, yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I want to see the Commanders prove that. So it's going to be a good game here. I'm going to let you have first pick. Are there any other games on the board you think?
Foolish, Jared, because this is a weak slate. I'm looking at the slate and I'm like, ugh. So I will take Broncos Eagles. Thank you very much. I'll take that game right off the slate because while the Eagles are 4-0, we've said it many times, it's not a world-beating, dominating 4-0. We mentioned some stats earlier. We mentioned the offense being relatively subpar in terms of what they need to do to win a game because they're very game managey. They're not like going out and having these crazy things and it's like, oh, they're unstoppable. It's just kind of like, you know, tight execution around the edges, coming out with close victories. I mean, they beat the Rams on a blocked field goal. So it's not like they're, oh my God, they're unstoppable. The Broncos, however, have had games like they just had against the Bengals where they absolutely stomped them. And then they had games where they lost to the Colts. Now the Colts are 3-1, but they at the time they were the Colts and the Broncos seemed like they were going to be a much better team and a defense that I think has been renowned all preseason about being this dominating unit got destroyed by Daniel Jones. So going against a very like competent Eagles offense, despite the numbers, despite how they've been outgained compared to yards they've gained, when needed, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, that offensive line can get the job done. So whose front seven is going to kind of dominate, I think, is going to be a big storyline here. Bo Nix on the other end, I think, is an important name to mention because he has also had games where it's like, oh yeah, there's Bo Nix that we saw last year. That surprisingly very good rookie year. I think if Jaden Daniels didn't have this awesome season, Bo Nix would have been talked about a lot more because he was having a very good year for where he was drafted and what his expectations were. This year, he's had games where he's looked like that. He's had games where it's like, oh, ew, I don't know about that. Which Bo Nix shows up to this game, I think is going to be really important.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick, and I think you covered it. I want to get out of here before midnight, so I will let your thoughts be our record on it. I think it's a good pick. It wasn't the one I was looking at. Granted, I didn't fully process the list here, but I think Bucks Seahawks could be really interesting. These are two 3-1 squads right now, and the Bucks, as we've already discussed, played a lot of close ones. The Seahawks have had some really nice wins again against the Saints, right? They let the Cardinals back into Thursday Night Football, but were dominating that game beforehand as well. I kind of feel like the Seahawks have had more confidence building wins to me, but my perception going in was that the Buccaneers would be the more competitive team overall. This game to me screams three three seed, 6 seed playoff rematch at Tampa Bay come week one of the postseason, potentially with the way these two teams have their seasons trending. And I think it's going to be a nice litmus test for two teams that are very evenly matched. And I think it'll lead to an interesting contest with things that are worth talking about when they're done.
Yeah, it's a great pick. When I was looking at the slate, that was the other game that was really kind of on top of mind for the number one game I wanted to talk about. So I like that for you. Two again, clear playoff teams for me at this point in the season. So
Mhm.
I think that'll be a fun matchup in the same conference too. I'll take this. Maybe a little surprising. Chiefs at Jaguars, Monday Night Football.
Oh,
Jaguars are 3-1, man. The Chiefs are worse than that. So, um, despite the dominating performance they just had against the Ravens, the Jaguars, while not having a great schedule so far this year in terms of their wins are against relatively subpar teams. How do they look against the Chiefs? Even though the Chiefs haven't been this dominating unit, they're still the Chiefs, right? There's still a reputation there. It's prime time. Do they still hold up that end of the bargain? And it's the start of a brutal 3-week stretch for them. I believe they played the Rams following week, and then like another really good team. Like they play some good teams here. So 3-1 start. Can they carry that momentum into this tougher part of their schedule?
Uh, I actually think it's a great Monday night game because it's a team you don't expect to be super competitive and a team you do expect to be super competitive. Turns out maybe these teams are closer than we expect, and so that might turn into a consequential matchup in two hot division races right now. So that's a great pick. I'm going to ask you before I make my next pick, how many games left do you think are worth mentioning?
None.
Zero.
I think there's maybe one more, and if you hit it, I'm like, great, I'm good.
I think there's two.
Sure.
I think one of them you would never say in a million years, and one of them is the one I think we're both thinking.
Okay.
So will you bring
What's
up the one
what's
I think
what's the never one? I'm curious.
I want to save it for last because I want to stun
Okay.
and shock the listener here. Is the one you're thinking of 49ers Rams?
No. And I did think of that
Oh,
game. I did think of it. I think the Rams are so clearly better. Um,
oh, fair.
like,
Honestly, it's a fair take.
like, and
Yeah.
the 49ers are so banged up. Honestly, the one I was thinking of, not for the game itself, but for the narrative season long purposes. If the Colts destroy the Raiders, what does that mean for either team? Are we saying the Colts are real after being 4-1? Is the Raiders season over? Because God, it's looked bad sometimes this early season. So
That I feel like if the Colts stomp the Raiders, we could be seeing Kenny Pickett the next week there. And interesting poll, good poll. Definitely is impactful to the Josh McDaniel Bowl. Is that Josh McDaniels? Josh, yeah. The former the current actually, crazy enough. Patriots offensive coordinator, former Patriots offensive coordinator under Bill Belichick, went to the Colts, said, I'll be your coach. Said, never mind, I won't be your coach. And then obviously coached the Raiders for a few years before getting the boot. No, that wasn't my game, Damon. Damon, there's a player that I've talked about a lot. Just a focus of my sick mind that has these bizarre fascinations. Do you know who I'm talking about, Damon?
Uh, is it Drake May?
No, it's Dylan freaking
Oh,
Gabriel.
okay. Yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
if you
yeah.
checked the news today, my friend, but
No, is
Joe
this what you were
Flacco,
alluding to 3 hours ago?
yes, Joe Flacco has been benched.
I didn't see that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Dylan Gabriel getting the start. Vikings Browns, 8:30 a.m. I'll be up bright and early, baby. I didn't choose for my voice to do that. It just went there. But that
That
is
was good.
it's how I'm feeling, gosh darn it. I thought maybe we'll see Dylan Gabriel, but it'd be such a Browns thing to do to make it Flacco's world and we're all just living in it. But one, I do think the Shedeur Sanders narrative is interesting, and this brings us one layer closer to that. More importantly to me, I have a sick fascination with the guy between Flacco and Sanders. The third round quarterback forgotten in all that Sanders hubbub. We wouldn't think twice about Dylan Gabriel if he was the only quarterback they'd taken. But once Sanders got selected, that QB room became a source of such fascination. And at the center of that, for me, is the indie pick, the alt selection, the B side of the record. It's not Shedeur, it's Dylan. And we're going to see him against a mortal Vikings team who still will be trotting out Carson Wentz, it seems. Had a pretty inept showing against an elite defense. That could be trouble. It's possible that if Dylan Gabriel is competent, we could see the Vikings have happened to them what they inflicted on the Bengals when their backup quarterback ran into the Vikings defensive buzzsaw. Now you've got Carson Wentz playing against Myles Garrett. Good luck. What a contest. Oh, what a treat. Dylan Gabriel starting. Never thought I'd see the day. Here it is in week 5. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I probably sleep to that one. But I'm happy for you because that's your guy.
Yeah,
8:30
yeah.
is too early for me on Sunday, man. I gotta I don't sleep a lot during the week. This is well known. I gotta catch up at some point.
I will be dedicating, whether you like it or not, probably at least 10 minutes to however Dylan Gabriel plays in our
Yeah,
next episode. I'm
yeah,
so
for sure.
sorry.
No, no, this is way sooner than I saw. I'm really surprised I didn't see this headline. I feel like it should be bigger news, but like you mentioned, it's kind of the whatever of it all
I
is
think it
Dylan
was in
Gabriel
the
has become.
afternoon today also, which I know you're kind of transitioning from work and to home and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
I looked on the old Twitter right before we started recording, and making sure I was caught up and everything, but
I'm
no,
so
no word
pleased
of
I was the
that.
one who got to tell you. I am so pleased.
Yeah, live react. That was shocking. They announced him as the starter. They said like Dylan Gabriel's the starter this week.
Yes, it was like Joe
Gotcha.
Flacco bench, Dylan Gabriel will start, I believe.
Awesome.
So yeah, I might frame the announcement actually.
That's fair.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel expected to start. So I guess in theory it could be if Shitter Sanders starts.
How?
The show will end. The show will end. We will no longer
The,
record.
the
That's what
next
I have
show
to
will
say.
be very unethical.
Oh, I'll have some unethical things to say. I'll tell you that much for
Yeah.
free. Uh,
Did you want to tell me about 49ers Rams at all? You mentioned it.
I think it's of the games here, it's a division matchup in a week with not a lot of those.
Yeah.
In fact, looking at the schedule, they may be the only division matchup this week. Those draw a little more attention, especially in a slate that is a lot of NFC, AFC, or non-division contests. And, they are right at the top of the division. So the winner would take the lead in a tiebreaker. But I think you're right that if we're seeing like a Mac Jones led Niners team with um, the ghosts of wide receivers past, I think it's fair to say the Rams should come out and win. If they don't, then that's going to be a signature win for the Niners season and something that inspires a lot of hope.
Yeah. No, I think that is fair. Yeah, again, I said it earlier, but I just think the Rams have looked really good in their execution, especially on offense. I think their defense is a little underrated with the 49ers and all their injuries coming on the short week Thursday night slate. Um, I just don't I just don't see them standing a chance, which sounds crazy, but like
Yeah.
just and coming into the season, to be clear, I had the Niners I think at 12 and 5, the Seahawks at 12 and 5, the Rams at 11 and 6. So like I didn't think any of the teams were dominant, but I thought they would all be good because they all play a lot of weak teams out of the division. Um, but so far the Rams have proved me wrong in that doubt. They look really good.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're
It's
right
time.
that it probably less competitive than I thought. Let's do our one-liners and
It's
then let's
time,
get
baby.
out of here.
Um, I'm sorry for subjecting all of my podcast co-hosts to podcasts that are always longer than intended. It's my fault. I write the outlines, and then I see a thing and I remember a thing and I backtrack and then I go all over the place. So,
I think it's
um,
good because I think we're at our best and we're spontaneous and we're building on each other.
yeah, it's
I think we
fun,
just have to
man. It's
leave
fun.
room for that, so that we can get
Yeah.
in under 2 hours still.
I just get so worried that I'm gonna forget. So I'm like, let me put this, let me put this, let me put this.
Yeah.
And then I remember the other stuff and it's like,
I
anyways,
wonder if we should just have a third tier of game that's like we don't even do the brief recap. We're just like these are the injuries. Look up at the
this
score
game's
for yourself.
happening.
Yeah. This game
Uh,
happened. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe shortening our previews. Again, I'll say real quick before we do our one-liners. I mentioned this as we did the wheel. It was very quick in case you missed it. First week of buys, the Falcons, Bears, Packers, and Steelers all on bye this week for week 5. So you will not see those 4 teams sweeping up. Jared and I already spun both the Falcons and Packers, so I didn't take those off
Worked
the
out.
wheel. But I did have to take the Bears and Steelers off because they're not playing. So
Good
just
call.
wanted to make a note of that.
GC. All right. Let's get our one-liners. Do you want to start with Cowboys, Jets, or shall I?
Go ahead.
Cowboys, Jets. For some reason, I think of fighter jets attacking the Cowboys stadium, not to harm anybody, but just to kind of like destroy it. And the brief bit of amusement I get from that mental image will likely be more amusement than I get from the game itself.
Mhm. Jackson Dart, Giants, Saints in New Orleans. You may mistake this for a college game, as there is a handsome young blonde man tearing it up in Louisiana. But it won't be Joe Burrow on LSU. It'll be Jackson Dart torching the Saints.
Nice, nice. Um, Dolphins, Panthers. You may mistake this for the Madden live stream of someone with 5 concurrent viewers because this game has no matchup appeal. So who's watching that on Twitch, let alone Sunday at noon?
Yeah, that's a great one.
I
Five
had to
concurrent
burn this
viewers is
game because
huge.
wow.
That's really big. Let's go Titans at Cardinals. What's the chance after this game the two teams just want to swap quarterbacks? Let's just change it up a little bit.
I
Let's
guess that's a good one. That's good.
well, 0-4 Titans start. Cam Ward, I don't know, man. Kyler Murray clearly doesn't want to be in Arizona. Maybe Marvin Harrison will catch the ball from someone else. I don't know.
I honestly, yeah. I actually like Cam Ward. I just hate what he's.
I like Cam Ward. I'm making a
No, I know, I
narrative
know.
point. It's not Cam Ward's fault what's going on in Tennessee.
Um, yeah, I mean, so much to say about that. Okay, Lions, Bengals. In the game Super Smash Brothers, your goal is to launch the opponent off the stage far enough that they cannot return and they're sent off into space. Sometimes characters can use a special move that actually just destroys the character on the stage with a flare and a flourish. It is possible the Lions will do the equivalent of that to the Bengals, causing Zach Taylor and the rest of his squad to just evaporate following whatever takes place in Cincinnati.
Good, 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 good.
I mean, it's not one
Yeah,
line, but frankly, I don't have a lot
it's a
of
good
faith in the
headline.
Lions. Yeah.
Um, Patriots at Bills. Sunday night football, baby. Two teams, one elite quarterback, one up and comer, zero wide receivers that are stars. That's it. Josh Allen will win the game.
I
It's so funny how I think Josh Allen is really successful with no patch catchers, but Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, these are respectable NFL players, but we're not talking about them as top 10, 15, 20 guys.
No, I mean, I think you look at some of the teams, the Buccaneers maybe have the deepest wide receiver room in the league, and then you're like, yeah, maybe Keon Coleman can be something. Dawson Knox is solid, right?
Right.
It's crazy that there are probably like 15 teams that would, if they traded their number one receiver to the Bills, they would be far and away the best receiver on the team.
Yeah.
Um, all right, that is it. And because we've been
That's a
going for
divisional
so
matchup,
long,
by the way. Um,
I'm sorry.
that's the other divisional matchup.
Oh, you're right. There are two. Um, I think that of the two, I would contend that Niners Rams is a little closer.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, I'm rushing the field goal unit onto the field. We don't have a timeout, so we just have to line up and take the kick here. It's a
Jordan
40.
Love didn't pass it with 1 second left.
No, it's a 47 yarder. Like, subscribe, like, subscribe. Kick is up.
And that bounced right off the camera, baby. It's good.